This guy woke up from an endless coma, 100 years in the future. In this world, divine dragons invaded, and he was one of the heroes of the past. But now in the future, the dragon god has awakened. He was reborn in the body of an F-rank student with no powers at a magic academy. But with just a single sword, the genius defeated every teacher in the academy. Flying over the ruined city, a giant dragon lets out a terrifying roar. Inside the base, an officer reports that the defenses have fallen after the strike. Called Britra, the dragon asks if this is all the humans have. Then he fires a powerful blast toward the soldiers below. At that moment, a figure leaps in front of the blast, surprising everyone. Successfully stopping the blow, he protects all the soldiers there. Recognized as a Jido Yatsurugi, he apologizes for being late. He then asks everyone to leave the rest of the fight to him. Changing scenes, portals appeared all over the world in the 20th century. From these portals came monsters, forcing humanity to fight using new powers. After countless casualties, humanity was close to winning the final battle. Back to the present, a woman arrives and calls for General Amasaki. She reports that they managed to defeat all the other dragons that appeared. With only Britra remaining, the Dragon of Darkness emerges before them, but she ends up staggering, showing she's completely out of strength. She says everyone is out of magic and power, completely exhausted. With Ajido being the only one who can still fight, they must leave everything to him. Britra congratulates him on the other dragons, but doubts he can fight with just a sword. But Ajido warns it won't be just the sword, as he'll risk everything to stop him. At this, the woman explains that everyone has magic, but Ajido is considered without. Because of this, he ended up developing a different way to fight. Using the magic of the atmosphere, he manages to imbue his sword with power. Then he prepares himself, saying he's finally ready to go on the attack. Seeing this, the dragon calls him a fool and tells him to simply disappear. Launching several strikes from above, the dragon attacks Ajido with full force. Dodging all the blows, he continues advancing at high speed. Leaping toward the dragon, he prepares to use his swordsmanship. He then prepares a strike, which manifests as the sound of thunder. Hitting the dragon squarely, his powerful blow strikes the target dead on. Surprised, they wonder how he caused so much damage without having magic. Feeling the blow, the dragon simply says he now understands everything. He then moves, preparing to take the fight much more seriously. Saying he's different, a third eye emerges on his forehead. With a roar, he releases a massive amount of power, destroying everything. Creating a barrier, she protects the general from the impact of the explosion. He realizes this must be the true form of the fearsome dragon. Seeing this, he decides he'll have to fight with everything he has now. Revealing the purpose of his swordsmanship, he prepares for the final blow. Using his strongest technique, he gets ready to end the fight. Moving forward, the two face each other, ready for the great confrontation. Leaping toward Britra, he advances for the final attack. He lands an incredible sequence of strikes, giving the dragon no time to react. Impressed, she says he's managing to push Britra back. But this technique ends up using his own life energy to function. She says they need to leave, as he won't stand a chance if he has to protect them. Facing each other, the two prepare for the great final confrontation. Floating above the city, Ajido faces the dragon who now has a third eye. Calling him pathetic, the dragon notices the location of his companions. Then he prepares an enormous blast, saying all insects are the same. Seeing the blow, he realizes that if he dodges, everyone there will certainly die. With no other choice, he decides he'll try to stop the blow head on. Calling for Yuka, he turns to his companion one last time. He then apologizes and asks her to take care of everyone there. Desperate, she screams his name, already imagining what will happen. Britra then launches a powerful blast from his mouth toward them. To counter, he uses his strongest technique for the confrontation. Gathering his power, he prepares to use his strongest blow. Shouting loudly, he warns that this will be the end of the mighty dragon. He advances with everything, colliding his strike directly with the dragon's. Colliding with force, the two blows clash in the air with total power. Putting all his strength in, he screams while staring him in the eyes. Feeling the impact of the blow, the dragon roars in pain against the attack. At this, an enormous light ends up covering the entire battlefield. Even wounded, he continues maintaining his very determined gaze. With a hole in his chest, the dragon was finally defeated by him. Falling from the sky, the dragon's body crashes against the buildings. Seeing him approach, his companion screams his name worried. Staggering forward, he ends up falling exhausted to the ground. Running to help, she asks him to wait a little there. She then holds him and asks him not to move. Seeing the scene, the general asks if he really managed to win. He says he destroyed the core, so the dragon must be dead. Hearing this, all the soldiers begin celebrating the victory. Celebrating, the general shouts that humanity finally survived. Focusing Focusing her magic, she says she'll hurry to heal him. At this, Britra, even dead, says it was all very regrettable. Even being healed, he struggles and asks if he's the only one hearing this. Britra confirms that the plans continue. Continuing his speech, the voice reveals that the conditions to awaken Ragna have been met. Understanding nothing, he reacts completely shocked by the revelation he just heard. At this, the voice explains that their war was futile, as they would return. Feeling immense pain, he screams the name of his companion fallen on the ground. Then he questions himself about the dragon god, saying his fight was meaningless. She continues trying to heal him, but her magic doesn't work and she almost faints. Desperate, he begs for one more chance, shouting that he couldn't die yet. Suddenly, his companion looks astonished at what happens right in front of her. Even on the ground, he states that his battle had not yet come to an end. After that, a strange event begins to emerge coming directly from the skies. In moments, it intensifies, forming a pillar that descends at high speed. Upon touching the ground, that pillar transforms into a large magic circle. Changing scenes to a hospital, a voice reports that vital signs are normal. Next, the same voice reveals that the patient's name is Ajido Mitsurugi. Continuing to speak, the voice asks him to wait, as the doctor was already coming. Beginning to wake up, he questions what that noise was that he was hearing. Looking around the room, he wonders if he was really in a hospital. On television, a program reports that the world was saved and celebrates an anniversary. The news continues, saying they're commemorating the heroes who brought peace to the world. Astonished, he shouts upon seeing the TV reporting the 100th anniversary of the war. Saying this is impossible, he gets agitated and needs more information. Seeing his reflection, he wonders if that was really him reincarnated in the future. Completely confused, he tries to understand what was actually happening there. Suddenly, the TV broadcasts urgent news about a series of portal activations. Attentive to the news, he hears that more than 50 portals were activated today. At this, the reporter mentions the chance of the 6 dragons returning, leaving him shocked. Returning to memory, the dragon's voice warns they would return in 100 years. Even without knowing how he reincarnated, he sees this as a miraculous opportunity. Then he questions whether the awakening of the dragon god Ragna is already imminent. Warning his enemies, he says they're mistaken about their plans succeeding. With firmness, he declares he'll do the impossible to prevent Ragna's awakening. Looking at an ID, he discovers he's now a student at the Magic Academy. Through a photo, it's revealed that his parents died when he was a child. Already in uniform in his room, he gets ready, knowing he'll have to live alone now. That's when he notices the striking similarity between his old name and the new one. He then thinks about warning the Mage Guild about the dragons and Ragna. Right after, he unsheathes his sword and delivers a quick, precise strike. As a result, the can sitting on the table appears completely sliced to pieces. Looking forward, he simply announces that it's finally time to go. Switching scenes, a reporter announces a press conference from the Mage Guild. As he walks down the street on TV, the guild leader says there's no problem with the portals. He guarantees that elite mages have been sent to keep everyone safe. Observing the situation, he notes that the guild seems pretty competent. In front of the building, he says he'll act carefully to understand the enemy. Arriving at his destination, he observes the facade of the Grand Magic Academy. Right at the entrance, he considers himself lucky to have reincarnated as a student. Inside the academy, he plans to gather information and make contacts with powerful mages. After all, he knows he'll need strong allies to fight against the 6 dragons. Meanwhile, a student conjures a spell and prepares to launch a strike. He then fires his attack toward one of the training targets, but the strike hits the target, causing only a small flame on the spot. Watching the scene, an instructor praises the student's progress and encourages him. With a smile on his face, he turns to the side, observing the other students. Nearby, other students also practice their ice and lightning strikes. Seeing their level, he's disappointed and says they're all too weak. In the background, the instructor continues giving support for the students to keep training. Looking for his classroom, he wonders if he'll find strong allies at the academy. Setting that aside, he decides to focus on understanding the situation better first. When he opens the door, a voice calls him Sword Master. Inside the classroom, a group of thugs stares at him, asking if he's feeling better now. Mocking the situation, their leader says he was very worried about his absence. With a threatening look, he asks who they would have fun with without him there. While the class stays silent, the other thugs start laughing at the situation. Realizing the mistake, he decides to pretend for now that he's just Ajido Mitsurugi. Pretending to have lost his memory, he apologizes and asks who they are. Completely incredulous, the 3 react with an expression of pure rage on their faces. Going at him, the redhead grabs him forcefully by the collar of his uniform. Screaming with anger, he introduces himself as Yuki Hiba, a rank A mage. Right after, he delivers a strong blow that hits him squarely. With the impact, he's thrown hard against the classroom floor. floor. Even on the ground, he stares back at him with a completely calm and serene expression. Calling him a failure, the thug orders him to bow before the stronger ones. Afraid, the other students whisper, hoping they won't end up like the newbie. Staring at his sword, the thug mocks him for using such an outdated weapon. With a smile, he tells him to try hard and become a hero someday. Then he approaches and shouts that he'll never be a hero like Yatsurugi. Still on the ground, he just calmly responds that he finally understood the situation. Then he asks if they were the ones who sent the old Ajito to the hospital. Standing up, he warns that he's busy and is leaving, dusting off his uniform. Before leaving, he advises the group to stop wasting time and train. Impressed by the attitude, everyone in the room is in complete shock. Very angry, the thug shouts that he's crossed the line and will pay. His friends panic, saying that at this rate he'll be hospitalized again. Preparing his magic, the redhead says he'll grant his wish to die. Then the other students scream desperately, warning that they're in an enclosed space. Ignoring everyone, he smiles and says he'll gladly grant that wish. He then launches a powerful fire strike in his opponent's direction, but at the last second, he quickly draws his sword to defend himself. Using his sword, he launches a powerful fire strike at his adversary. With the impact of the blow, his opponent is thrown far away. Seeing that, the others wonder how a rank F nullified that magic. Not understanding what happened, he stares at his opponent with a surprised expression. He then questions out loud if that was really the Ajito he knew. Keeping his angry expression, he refuses to accept what happened. Irritated, he shouts for them to stop underestimating him right now. Just then, a voice orders them to stop, interrupting their fight. Standing at the classroom door, student Erika Amasaki appears. Both guys look in her direction with expressions of total surprise. Surprised, other students comment that Erika finally returned from her mission. She then points out that they were using attack magic inside the classroom. Creating a defense, she manages to block the fire strike launched at her. After, she deflects the attack and warns that if he doesn't stop now, then she says she'll be the next opponent he'll face. Very angry, he clicks his tongue and shows his total frustration. Deciding to retreat, he then calls his friends to leave. After the group leaves, she finally breathes relieved with the situation. Seeing that everything's over, her friends approach to welcome her. Remembering an ancient heroine, he wonders if she might be a descendant. With a slight smile, he decides he can tell her everything now. Far from there, the guy gets furious for being humiliated in front of everyone. With his fist in flames, he shouts that he won't forgive that humiliation. In a fury attack, he lands a powerful blow on a tree. Full of hatred, he swears he'll finish off Ajito and Erika too. Meanwhile, a mysterious man observes the school from atop a building. Revealing his identity, he seems to recognize the name Ajito Mitsurugi. He then comments that the name is unpleasant, but that now he has more prey. Smiling, he starts planning his next moves before his master returns. He concludes that he might need to eliminate these two new obstacles in his path. Screaming in rage, he says he was humiliated by Ajito and Erika. One of his friends suggests they call them out to fight after class. Enraged, he grabs his friend and yells that he'll crush anyone who humiliates him. Suddenly, they hear clapping and turn to see who's there. Appearing, the mysterious man says his mentality is wonderful. Confused, they ask who he is and where he just came from. Looking at the man, the boy is completely shocked and speechless. With a smile, he apologizes and formally introduces himself as Odium. Next, he asks the group of students to cooperate with him. Quickly, he grabs the boy's face with one of his hands. He then lifts him into the air, and a mark appears on his neck. After that, the boy is thrown to the ground and his friends scream for him. Fallen, his eye begins to glow with a very intense and different color. His friends beg him to stop, but he stands up with a strange power. With his eye glowing, he lets out a very loud scream of pain. Floating in the air, he releases an immense power that cracks the entire ground. Seeing the result, Odium says that now he's much more useful to him. Saying he now has a pawn, he warns that the game will finally begin. Changing scenes, a teacher announces a practical test inside that gate. He explains that a rank A teacher will supervise everything for their safety. Thinking about the monsters, he wonders if the students will be okay. Going to Erika, he thanks her for the help she gave him earlier. She laughs and tells him to let her know if they provoke him, because she'll handle it for him. She then says that cowards would never have the courage to face a great hero. Remembering the past, he says that heroes lived happily ever after. Seeing him smile, she asks why, but he just dodges the question and says goodbye. Getting serious, she realizes that the move Ajito used wasn't magic. She also notices that Yuki's spell hadn't actually failed before. With a surprised look, she understands that what he used was swordsmanship. She concludes that the only person capable of doing that would be him. She remembers that he is the legendary swordsman Ajito Yatsurugi. Thinking about his name, she stares at him with an expression of total distrust. She then then wonders in her thoughts who he really is. Already inside the gate, a huge monster appears in front of the students. Seeing that it's an orc, they prepare for combat without knowing the weak point. Advancing quickly, the monster attacks one of the students with a powerful blow. With the force of the blow, the student is thrown hard to the ground. Preparing to attack again, the orc raises its arm against the fallen student. In an instant, Ajito appears and lands a fatal blow on the monster's back. Protecting his classmate, he defeats the creature with a single swift movement. Turning to the boy, he asks if he's okay after that attack. Impressed, the other students comment that it was incredible and very fast. Thinking about the situation, the teacher decides to look for more skilled warriors from the guild. Left alone, he feels a strange presence approaching suddenly. With a serious expression, he wonders what it is he's feeling. Suddenly, he comes across Yuki standing in the middle of the defeated monsters. Staring at his back, Ajito realizes that his colleague is covered in blood. Turning slowly, the boy calls out to him with a different look and power. With his eyes glowing, he screams in a frightening way for Ajito to die. Jumping at him, the boy attacks with a powerful fire strike. At that moment, he realizes that his colleague's magic is much stronger now. Besides the magic, his movements also seemed strange and much faster. Advancing again, he has his arm grabbed by Ajito at the last second. With a quick movement, he breaks his opponent's arm without hesitation. Even with the broken bone, the boy keeps smiling without feeling any pain. Still holding him, he continues with his completely crazed and frightening expression. Then, in a moment of clarity, the boy begs Ajito to help him. Hearing the plea for help, he's shocked as he understands the situation. In that instant, he begins to have visions of various moments from his past. With great anger, he grinds his teeth as he remembers everything that happened. Saying to leave it to him, his finger begins to emit a strong light. Touching Yuki's forehead, he makes the mark on his neck disappear. With the touch, the boy faints and is held so he doesn't fall to the ground. Screaming very loud, he orders whoever is hiding to appear right that instant. Kneeling beside the body, he hears laughter coming from the darkness nearby. Emerging from the shadows, the man says he ruined his new toy. Appearing, he introduces himself as Odium, one of the 6 dragons who will resurge. Then he creates several magic circles that completely surround the young swordsman. Smiling, he says he'll be the executioner who will end his life. From inside the circles, several fire strikes are launched in his direction. Using his sword, he deflects all the strikes launched against him. Surprised, the villain can't believe he managed to nullify all his attacks. Seeing the destruction, he understands that the 6 dragons really will return soon. With a look of rage, he warns that his plans will never come true. With a smile, he says he likes his opponent's attitude. Then he warns that he's going to play around just a little, launching several strikes. To dodge the attacks, he moves fast across the exploding ground. Advancing toward each other, they clash their blades with tremendous force. Seeing Odium, Ajito asks why he's hurting humans. He responds that it's a foolish question because it's all for fun. In a new movement, the two leap up to exchange more blows in the air. Using his sword, he defends himself from the enemy's sequence of attacks. Remembering the war, he says he always leaves an escape route. In a memory from the past, a mother and her son try to escape by running. While they run, Odium watches them from afar, waiting for the moment. He then reveals himself to them, saying he feels enormous pleasure. Hearing all of that, he just grinds his teeth with intense rage. With an insane face, Odium finishes by saying it was all very entertaining. Surrounded by monsters, he laughs while pointing at his enemy. He shouts that when Ragna awakens, he'll be able to have fun once again. With a furious look, he shouts, saying that no one can stop him. Laughing hard, Odium raises a hand and prepares another one of his attacks. Suddenly, his arm is cut off before he can finish the strike. Surprised by the action, he hears his opponent telling him to shut up. At that, the hero says he feels disgusted, looking at Odium with contempt. Feeling the pain, Odium screams while gripping his injured arm. Calling him a bastard, Odium launches a strike in his direction. Then he attacks several times, shouting about how his opponent dares to do this. After that, he shouts that his opponent is nothing but a simple human being. He says they hunt the weak, advancing for another combat. Telling him to stop being arrogant, Odium prepares a massive strike in the sky. Multiple strikes fall from the sky toward Ajito. Seeing the attack, he stands up, saying he has no other choice. Preparing his technique, he launches a powerful sword strike upward. His strikes cut through the fire attacks, falling endlessly from the sky. After destroying the projectiles, the technique hits Odium directly. Seeing the attack up close, Odium recognizes the technique used by his opponent. With incredible force, the attack begins to destroy the entire scenery around them. At that, a giant creature falls to the ground, completely defeated by his strike. Rising with difficulty, Odium says he's seen that horrible technique before. He then shouts the name of the swordmaster, who was Ajito Yatsurugi. Confused, Odium asks if the hero reincarnated, since he thought he was dead. He simply responds that there's no reason to tell, since Odium is going to die. Hearing the threat, Odium grinds his teeth and starts to laugh softly. Gradually, his soft laughter transforms into a great mocking guffaw. Placing his hand on his face, Odium laughs desperately at the whole situation. He says it's a shame that Ajito managed to reincarnate in the end, because now he'll be killed once again by Odium's hands. Screaming loudly, Odium begins to undergo a massive power transformation. Seeing that, the hero is surprised by what's happening. His face begins to contort and change during the transformation. Odium says that Ragna's awakening is getting closer and closer now. With his hand transforming, he says they've gained new powers. Then he slams his hand on the ground, breaking everything with his new strength. Looking at the shadow, he's surprised by that new terrifying form. Already transformed, Odium lets out an extremely loud and powerful roar. At that, he releases an enormous wave of power that sweeps across the entire area. The ground is completely destroyed by the wave of power that Odium released. He turns around, watching the creature form in the middle of the dust. Odium tells the hero to observe his new and powerful form well. He shouts that this is Ragna's blessing and asks for his despair. Seeing the creature, he says that Odium has revealed his final secret weapon. He then apologizes, because now Odium knows his true identity, and because of that, Ajito warns that he'll be forced to end everything right there. Feeling the entire dungeon shake, the group wonders what's happening. Startled, Erika comments on the powerful magical energy she sensed there. Then she yells for everyone to get out of that place as fast as possible. She says she can feel an even more powerful monster approaching. Pointing to a corridor, she warns that the presence is coming from that direction. Running ahead, she advances alone to find out what's going on. Arriving at the location, she sees a fallen monster and a person standing right in front. Looking more carefully, she observes the defeated creature and the mysterious man. Then she recognizes the man as Ajito and questions why he's there. He then apologizes, because now Odium knows his true identity. And because of that, Ajito warns that he'll be forced to end everything there. But the monster prepares for a new strike. Performing a quick movement, he lands multiple hits on the creature. But Erika and Odium notice something. In one moment, a cut appears on the monster's face as a result of the blow, and suddenly several cuts strike the monster's body head-on. Then he says he's disappointed and asks if only its body is strong. Smiling, the creature responds, saying it was just a joke. Right after, its wounds begin to regenerate on their own. Seeing the scene, she screams in surprise that it's regenerating. Facing the monster, he remains silent after the provocation. The creature then shouts that, as it said before, it has Ragna's blessing. Gathering energy, it warns that his useless swordplay won't work. Letting out a laugh, it fires a sequence of strikes in the hunter's direction. Several blows then explode throughout the cavern around him. Worried, she says the monster is too strong for a student. Then she adds that only an S-rank mage could fight it. Advancing quickly, he prepares to land a new strike. Then the two exchange blows, with their weapons clashing. He realizes this is Ragna's blessing, and that this is the level of a lackey. With one movement, the creature launches a powerful strike against him. Defending the blows, the monster says he's just a human from the past. Smiling, it continues saying that the hero died without knowing the grand plan. Remembering the past, it says that his war was all in vain. Looking at him, the monster calls him a foolish hero. Worried about the situation, the girl desperately screams his name. Meanwhile, the monster says there's absolutely no way to save the world. But with a quick strike, Ajito cuts off the creature's arm. Both Erika and Odium are shocked by that scene. Right after, a massive cut is made on the monster's body. Spitting blood, it says this is impossible, because the wound is too deep. Complaining about the pain, it says its regeneration can't heal the wound. Taking a step forward, he approaches the creature that's fallen on the ground. Then he tells the monster that it's completely right. Then he continues, saying that he really isn't a great hero. He explains that many died, and the peace they achieved didn't last long. But gripping his weapon, he warns that he won't let this repeat. Thinking of his friends, he says he'll do this for his companions and descendants. Screaming loudly, he promises that this time, he'll truly save the world. With great rage, the monster tells him to shut up immediately. Then the creature jumps and advances toward him with a powerful strike, but he grabs the monster's head and slams it hard into the ground. In disbelief, the creature repeats several times that this is impossible. Then it screams that the hunter is an excuse of a hero who should be dead. Beginning to transform, the monster's body starts to grow and crack. With a war cry, it warns that it refuses to lose to him. Using one of his techniques, he manages to land a direct hit on the creature. Revealing the name of the technique, he calls it Moon Piercer. With the impact of the blow, a massive explosion happens at the location. Spitting a lot of blood, the monster's body begins to crack completely. This way, the creature's body begins to shatter slowly. As it falls apart, it tries to call its master's name. With its last strength, it calls for Master Rebel and disappears. Seeing the monster defeated, he stands still watching the dust. Approaching him, the girl calls him by the name Ajito. Then he turns around surprised that she's still there. Not understanding anything, she asks for an explanation and asks who he is. Changing scenes in the central region, a woman prepares for a report. She begins saying that the monster that identified itself as one of the 6 dragons has just been completely defeated by her forces. On the other side of the line, a voice confirms that the 6 dragons have returned. She asks if the next mission is to find the 6 dragons, and complains about work. The voice responds that they've already found a candidate, Ajito, who defeated the lackey Odium. Completing the information, he says that the young man did all that alone. Then she calls for Riku, who was sitting nearby the whole time. Appearing suddenly, the S-rank Indra, Riku Odo, says it's impossible. He says that Ajito is a swordsman without magic, something quite outdated. Not believing it, he says there must have been some kind of mistake. The mysterious voice then asks for one of them to verify if he's that strong. Depending on the abilities, he gives permission to recruit him for Seraphim. Then without much choice, Riku volunteers to go personally on this mission. He tells Lina to write the report, and she complains that he's only going to escape. Already preparing to leave, he notices there were still more monsters at the location. As he walks, he questions himself about this Ajito Mitsurugi. Then, he begins to gather a large amount of energy in his hand. Launching his strike, he hits all the flying monsters at once. With the power of the blow, all the monsters are destroyed in an instant. With a smile, he says he'll see what Ajito is really made of. At the Academy's training grounds, she's completely shocked by what's happening there. Then she asks if he's Ajito Yatsurugi reincarnated to awaken the powerful Ragna. Staying calm, he just watches her, waiting for her to finish voicing her suspicions. Confirming everything, he says yes, leaving the girl even more confused by the whole situation. For her, it would be hard to believe if he had just told her without any concrete proof, but she remembers seeing his sword techniques with her own eyes. They were strikes at the level of an S-rank mage, something only the master swordsman could pull off. Before her, he remained serious, waiting to see what her final decision about this would be. After sighing, she finally says she believes him, accepting the truth of it all. Then she lays down a single condition before moving forward with any plan. With great determination, she asks to fight alongside him against the fearsome 6 dragons. She explains that her desire to save the world is just as strong as his. Just watching from afar, according to her, isn't her fighting style. He seems a bit surprised by the attitude and the great courage she's shown. Remembering the past, he realizes she's a lot like Yuka, having the same potential. Noticing his reaction, she asks what's wrong, but he just says it's nothing. Then she wants to know what their next step will be from now on. He answers that they need to gather allies because the 2 of them alone won't make it. His plan is to bring together a group of companions, just like the 4 great heroes did. Remembering her family, she mentions that her great-grandmother was one of those legendary heroines. Then she suggests they look for the Seraphim group, since they might be able to help a lot. It's an elite team of mages, created by the guild to investigate the portals. She tells him her recent overseas mission was to help a candidate get into Seraphim. With plenty of confidence, she states they're the most powerful team of mages in the current era. Liking the idea, he repeats that they're the most powerful, showing his interest. Still, he worries about how he'll get them to believe his story. She explains the group has all kinds of people, but with one thing in common. Their mission is to protect the peace that the Blade Master and the heroes won. They risk their lives to protect others, so he doesn't need to worry about that. Feeling relieved, he says it'll be comforting to fight alongside the heroes of this generation. She starts to say that some members, to be fair, are a bit strange. Suddenly, he senses a threat approaching very fast, going into a state of alert. Moving quickly, he protects her from a strike that appears unexpectedly between them. Startled by the attack, she hears him shouting for her to be very careful. Saying they have a visitor, he comments that was a really fast strike. In front of them, a powerful impact happens, raising a lot of dust and debris from the ground. Through the smoke, a man appears saying he honestly didn't expect much from there. Then the newcomer adds that at least he's not completely useless. Recognizing the man, she shouts the name Riku Odo, and he asks if she knows him. She explains he's an S-rank mage from the guild and the most powerful mage. Besides that, she confirms he's also part of the elite group known as Seraphim. Facing him, Riku says he heard he defeated an heir of the 6 dragons alone. With disdain, he tells him he also defeated one, but the enemy was pretty weak. But Riku warns that doesn't mean a student could fight against one of them. Preparing for combat, he just tells his new opponent to get ready. Riku warns he's going to do an aptitude test, preparing a large magic circle. Gathering an immense amount of power, he prepares to launch his strike. Desperate, she screams the name of the technique he's using at that moment. She explains this is an ability for giant monsters, not to be used on humans. Riku proposes that if he can take it, he'll become a candidate, and he asks what happens if he fails. With a smile, Riku says he'll just report that the information about him was wrong. Accepting the challenge, he tells Riku to bring it on, preparing for combat. Then Riku fires a powerful strike in his direction, destroying everything in its path. Readying his sword, he concentrates to use his family's technique against the attack. He then unleashes a powerful strike with his sword, going head-on against Riku's attack. Riku is surprised by his power, while the girl tries to shield herself from the impact. After the clash of strikes, Ajito remains standing, facing his opponent seriously. Seeing the result, Riku admits that wasn't bad at all, while she remains impressed. Maintaining his posture, he stares back at Riku, showing the test was a success. Ajito stares at Riku intently, waiting to see what his response will be after all that. Calling his name, Ajito prepares to make a very important proposal. With a big smile, he invites him to join on his journey to the future. Riku calls out to him with a very serious expression. With a smile, he says he really likes Ajito's fighting style. Embracing him, he reveals that he came to recruit him and praises his impressive defense. Responding calmly, he says the attack wasn't used at full strength. Faced with the response, Riku is left completely without any reaction. Next, he says that at full strength, the place would have been destroyed. Finishing his thought, he states that mages of that level are hard to find. After the analysis, his expression changes to a smile of genuine surprise. Then he changes his mind and offers a spot on the elite team Seraphim. Accepting the proposal, he asks if Erika can also join them. At this, he turns to the girl and asks if she's already a candidate. Bluntly, he interrupts the conversation, saying she can't join. Showing the mission report, he justifies his negative decision to the girl. Continuing the explanation, he says she doesn't have as much magical power as he does. Finally, he says she doesn't have special abilities like the boys' swordsmanship. He states that she is completely inferior to them, with no chance of joining. Making it clear to the girl, he says she's not good enough for Seraphim. Then he asks if she doesn't already know this better than anyone. Without responding, she just stares at him with a very serious expression on her face. Remembering her fights, she recalls how she couldn't help at all. She then admits that she's still not strong enough to join the team. Taking the lead, he approaches and asks if the other is sure about that. Caught by surprise, the blonde doesn't understand and asks what he means. With a smile, he assures that Erika has potential she can't even imagine. He also states that her power will be indispensable to them in the near future. Still suspicious, he says he doesn't know what he's talking about, but finds it bold. Mocking the situation, he guarantees he can do anything she does by himself. Disagreeing right away, he says that not even he can do what she does. He finishes by saying that in her special abilities, she can surpass him easily. Hearing the declaration, the girl is shocked and completely speechless. After a pause, he mentions the number of tens of millions per year. Revealing this statistic, he explains that this is the number of mages killed on missions. He contextualizes by saying that even 100 years after the war, portals and monsters continue. Remembering the past, he mentions that not even the defeat of the dragons brought complete peace. During investigations, he tells that lives are constantly lost in each attack. Clenching his fist, he states that he refuses to let more rookies die in battle. It was for this exact reason that he says the Seraphim team was established. After the explanation, he asks if the boy still recommends Erika's entry. With a smile on his face, he answers yes, showing no doubt. He guarantees that she has S-rank potential and will be worthy of a place. Interrupting the conversation, she says he's right and that she needs to train more. Hearing her response, the two just observe the scene in complete silence. At this moment, Lena approaches and says she also agrees with her. She then thinks that such great potential would have been noticed before and states that it would be something perceptible from the beginning. Surprised by the arrival, she calls out the name of the newcomer, who is named Lena, asking if he knows her. The blonde hears that they've met before. At this, the two continue staring at each other in silence, creating a tense atmosphere in the air. He realizes that she is another powerful member of the elite team called Seraphim. Proposing a challenge, she says that if he insists, the four of them can go on a mission. Refusing the proposal, he says no, as it would be a big hassle for him. Agreeing with his friend, he says there's no need at all for them to do that. With a smile, he then suggests settling everything with a 2-on-2 duel. After the proposal, the four stare at each other, with very serious expressions on their faces. Seeing his confidence, she says he seems to be underestimating their duo. She continues saying that fighting and protecting a burden won't be easy for them at all. Smiling with confidence, he states that he knows very well how strong the two of them are. Changing her mind, she suggests they use the guild's training hall. She then explains that the place can suffer damage when S ranks fight seriously. Agreeing with the idea, he says it's perfect and he doesn't mind the format. With an excited smile, he says he really wants to fight for real against Ajito. Saying he won't hold back, he hears the other agree enthusiastically with the challenge. While she calls to him worried, he just asks her not to worry about it. He then continues and says she's much stronger than she imagines herself to be. Turning to her, he asks if she'll trust him and fight by his side. Surprised by the confidence, she responds yes and accepts the challenge he proposed. Hearing the response, he just gives a slight confident smile to the opponents. Wielding her weapon, she says she'll show everything she can do now. With a satisfied smile, he tells the others that they heard what she said. Facing the two, he begins to say that he and Erica are ready to fight and declares they'll defeat the two S ranks in combat. At the Moga Guild headquarters, the challenger's confirmation is finally announced to everyone. On one side of the arena, Rank F Ajito and Rank A Erica are introduced. Facing the duo are the powerful S ranks Riku Odo and Lina Toma. As the group watches, a notice says the duel begins as soon as the barrier is activated. Talking among themselves, they wonder who Ajito Mitsurugi is besides the young woman from the Yamasaki family. At that, another group member questions if this duel will last more than a few seconds. Sitting at his desk, Mr. Jinguji responds that they will see the result for themselves. Focusing his attention on the screen, Ajito Mitsurugi's name appears prominently. Remembering the past, he recalls that Ajito defeated one of the 6 dragons' assistants alone. With a serious look, he says that now they will see what the challengers can do. Seeing the barrier activate, Ajito comments on its power and asks if it's sustained by machines. Erica then confirms, explaining that nowadays things are done that way. Coming from behind, Lina says that Yuka, who fought in the past, used a stronger shield. She adds that without a shield of that level, machine barriers are adequate. Concluding the thought, he says that a mage with a shield like Yuka's would be a strong ally. Turning to him, Lina questions him about what he just said. Interrupting the conversation, Riku says that's enough idle talk and tells her to stop interrupting him. Then he faces his opponents, saying they'll see what she can do when they start. Ajito responds that they're going to be impressed, while the countdown to the duel's start continues. As soon as the countdown ends, the four leap to start combat in the middle of the arena. Immediately, Riku already begins preparing a massive strike with his right hand. Watching from afar, the group of men is impressed by the power being released. At that, a powerful strike is launched directly against the challenger duo. Observing everything from his room, Mr. Jinguji says the fight has finally begun. Moving in front of Erica, Ajito tells her to leave the attack to him. He then unleashes a sequence of rapid strikes to intercept the incoming attack. His strikes collide with the opponents, creating a great power struggle. The men are shocked, saying he blocked the attack with a sword they've never seen. Prepared for the next move, Ajito faces his opponent from the other side of the arena. Riku then advances and lands a hit on Ajito, saying that wasn't bad at all. Attacking with a strike, Riku says he created a sword from lightning. Full of himself, he says that as an S-rank mage, he can manifest any attack he wants. At that, he fires several strikes, but Ajito manages to defend against all of them in the air. Landing on the ground, he prepares for the next confrontation, keeping his stance firm. While Riku advances, Lina prepares an attack to support her partner. She then launches her own attack, making Riku complain that the opponent was his. Seeing the attacks, Ajito comments that with 2 talented mages, Seraphim is the best. After speaking, he drives his sword into the ground, preparing for a counterattack. Releasing his power, a massive strike advances and destroys all the incoming projectiles. The impact of his strike completely breaks the attack that was launched against him. With an alert sounding, Mr. Jinguji orders them to increase the barrier's durability. Worried, he shouts to increase it to level 3, receiving confirmation immediately. The information said that the level 6 barrier was broken too easily by them. Observing the result, he wonders how they never noticed such a talented student before. Running across the battlefield, he says that Lina's strike wasn't bad at all. Preparing her attack, Lina says that line was actually hers. He then warns her that if she gets distracted, her partner will be in danger. At that, Ajito shouts Erica's name, seeing the opponent opponent approaching her from above. Admitting his strength, Riku says that now his focus is on his true opponent. He then says that now it's her turn to convince him she has what it takes. Erika faces the challenge, preparing for the attack coming in her direction. Leaping toward her, he delivers a powerful strike from top to bottom. Making a sign with her hand, she begins reciting the words of an incantation. She then raises a barrier, saying that protection will ward off all destruction. In the observation room, one of the men stands up shocked, questioning what he saw. Mr. Jinguji is also surprised, immediately recognizing that spell, being a spell that many mages failed to replicate, used by one of the great heroes. Remembering the past, he recalls the name of the great heroine, Yuka Amasaki. A great shield then manifests in the arena, completely blocking Riku's strike. Seeing the defense work, Riku and Lina are completely shocked by the result. With her arms raised, Erika dispels the remainder of the power that came from the attack. In disbelief, they say she managed to block the strike that was launched against her. Appearing behind the duo, Ajito says he had warned them she had potential. Facing his opponents, he prepares to take the next step in battle, and then he finishes saying that now it's their turn to finally attack. Shifting the scene to a few hours earlier, Erika found herself deep in thought. Staring intently at her, Ajito remained silent before beginning to speak. Sitting in his room, she comments that she's never been in a boy's room before. She then questions if they should even be there, since Ajito was being so quiet. Remembering their conversation, she says he wanted to talk about her potential. At that moment, a sudden idea seems to cross her mind, leaving her surprised. Imagining a scene, she sees herself being invited by him on a date. Trying to compose herself, she tells herself she can't do that as a member of the family. Calling her name, he warns her he's going to be very direct with her. He then reveals to her that she inherited her great-grandmother's powers. Not quite understanding, she can only react with a bit of surprise and confusion. Being more specific, he explains that she's capable of using defensive magic. He adds that it's just like her great-grandmother, the hero Yuka Amasaki. Shocked, she questions if she really has the same powers as her great-grandmother. He then explains that her powers are still dormant and would take years to awaken. Worried, she says she won't have the powers in time and asks what to do. Then she calls Ajito's name, who was standing right behind her. With a smile, he says they'll do things his way to solve the problem. Touching her back, he prepares to initiate the activation process. Startled by the touch, she ends up screaming and nearly falling forward off the chair. Asking him to wait, she warns him he can't touch her like that without warning. He then explains that she just needs to keep her hands firmly against him. Holding her, a power begins to awaken and flow through her entire body. Surprised by the situation, she questions what was happening at that moment. Looking at herself, she screams, saying her body felt different. He then reveals that he activated her magic, releasing her defensive power. Warning that the power is temporary, he says she'll need rigorous training. With a determined look, she responds that she's prepared to do whatever it takes. Satisfied with the answer, he says that was the attitude he expected. Finally, he says that now they're going to give their opponents the biggest shock of their lives. Back at the arena, Erika faces her opponents after dissipating the rest of the power. With shocked expressions, Riku and Lina look at the girl on the other side of the arena. In disbelief, the men shout that she managed to block the powerful strike launched by Riku. Turning to Mr. Jinguji, one of them asks how that could be possible. Remembering the past, he says that Erika was a candidate without much distinction among the others. He then wonders how Ajito recognized the potential hidden inside the girl. With attention turned to the boy, he asks himself who in the world is Ajito Mitsurugi. Saying they saw what Erika can do, Ajito prepares for his turn. He then warns that now it's his turn to attack and prepares his strike. Launching his attack, he advances against the duo with a powerful assault of strikes. Riku says he combined lightning with a sword strike, finding it not bad. Lina says it's not time to be impressed and launches her own attack against them. In front of Ajito, Erika uses her magic and creates a protection against the strikes. Lina is surprised she blocked it, but notes that the defensive spell is low level. Seeing the situation, Riku prepares a new strike with both hands raised. Launching a double strike, he attacks with all his force. Then he asks if she can really do that. With confidence, she responds that of course she can. Creating a barrier, she prepares to defend against the strike. At that moment, the attack is reflected and heads back toward the opponent. Surprisingly, he manages to hold his own strike with one hand. Impressed, he says it's interesting that she doesn't just block attacks. Showing great confidence, she convinces herself that she can win. In another scene, a girl conjures a barrier against an opponent. Then he explains that she shouldn't just block, but deflect the strikes. Realizing a chance, she believes she can finally win this fight. Back to the other fight, The two exchange strikes fiercely. Afterward, he turns to the side and asks what he thought of Erika. Laughing, the opponent admits she got pretty strong. Determined to advance, he says he's going to get more serious now. Being lifted into the air, the two float without control. Launching two small projectiles, he attacks from top to bottom. He wonders if that's a non-damaging supplementary magic. Dragging his weapon, he deduces that the opponent has a plan. Then he shouts for Lena to advance, but she tells him not to give orders. Bringing her hands together, she begins to conjure a new technique. At that moment, an ice prison forms and traps the two on the ground. Understanding the strategy, he says that's what she wanted. She confirms, saying she wanted to see who between them was the strongest. Then she proposes that the duos face each other in one-on-one fights. He admits that Erika really got stronger, but adds that the two of them have much more experience than they do. With power in hand, he prepares for a new attack and shouts that potential doesn't beat S rank, applying to both of them. In response, he says he doesn't think they have less experience. He continues his statement, saying that he and Erika will defeat them both. Screaming, she charges forward with her weapon in hand to attack. Striking back, she launches several blows while the other dodges. To protect herself, she conjures a barrier against the incoming attacks. At that moment, the girl prepares a new strike, raising her hand. Caught off guard, she sees the massive blow coming. Reacting quickly, she manages to block the strike with her own technique. Seeing the block, the girl prepares herself and enchants her own weapon. Advancing rapidly, she charges forward with her strengthened weapon. Noticing the strategy, she realizes that weak strikes are being blocked, and adds that she fights like a magic swordsman. Rushing forward, she says her opponent is annoying, but leaping overhead, she attacks with a downward strike. After blocking, she says her opponent needs more training. Then, she prepares a strike that travels along the ground. To defend herself, she conjures a large shield against the attack. The shield completely protects her from the attack advancing along the ground. Admitting her opponent is strong, she acknowledges the power of an S rank. Then she says the girl should give up due to lack of training. At that, she asks why she was challenged even knowing all this. Maintaining silence, she faces her opponent with a determined expression. She responds saying she had completely given up on herself. Continuing, she says even while training she felt she couldn't change anything. Her opponent just watches, listening carefully to what she has to say. Remembering the past, she saw someone fight alone for the world's future. She says she's still not strong, but wants to protect everyone like he did. With great determination, she shouts that she'll keep trying without giving up. Her opponent then asks if she thinks she can change the future. Floating in the air, she says the girl is just deluding herself. She prepares to receive the next blow coming from above. Unable to move, she realizes her body is paralyzed. She says that to move forward, one must first fix the past. Saying she won't let her pass, she prepares a new attack. Launching a powerful blow, she attacks with everything she has. Then the strike advances at high speed toward her opponent. With no other choice, she prepares to use her own technique. Quickly, she conjures a barrier to protect herself from what's coming. Using her defense, she completely blocks the attack that hits her. With the block, her opponent is surprised by what she just saw. At that, she realizes her attack is being reflected inside the barrier. Seizing the chance, she shouts that she finally caught her opponent. From afar, a man explains that the barrier doesn't let any magic through. He also says she uses defensive magic against an S-rank opponent. Comparing with another person, he says Erika had a lot of hidden potential. Trapped, the girl attacks the barrier, desperately trying to escape. With a gesture, she launches one last powerful blow. Extending her hands, her opponent prepares for the imminent impact. She then says that having power now doesn't change anything. Asking Lena to stop, she says that's enough already. At that, he appears and declares the fight is over. Turning to him, she tries to argue, calling his name. He then reminds her of their objective, which is to investigate the 6 dragons. Lowering her head, she finally yields to the order. Raising her hand, she signals her surrender in combat. Then they announce that Lena Toma's surrender has been recognized. She celebrates having managed to win the match. Floating, the barrier around her begins to dissolve. Returning to the ground, she now faces her opponent. Congratulating the girl, she acknowledges her victory. Still surprised, the winner thanks her for the words. Moving away, she says she wished the girl had been this strong before. Alone in the arena, the winner watches the other leave. Changing scenes, 2 strikes meet with great force. Continuing the combat, they exchange a rapid sequence of blows. Back to their fight, both hear the announcement of the surrender. He then celebrates her victory and asks what magic was used. Pointing his finger, he responds it was just the right guidance. He finds the answer interesting but warns it would be bad if both lost. Preparing himself, he warns that now things are going to get serious. With a confident smile, he just tells the other to come at him. Jinguji shouts no, trying to stop the fight. Asking Riku to stop, he asks if the intention is to destroy headquarters. Smiling, he seems to agree the combat has finally reached its end, but his opponent disagrees and shouts that he can't just quit now. Completely ignoring the calls, he begins to release more of his power. With a shout, he releases a large wave of power around him. Revealing his power, he demands his opponent show his too. He then prepares a massive blow, asking the other not to hold back. Concentrating the attack, he prepares to launch it against his rival. Then a powerful blow is fired in his opponent's direction. Watching the blow, he says he didn't know Riku was this strong. Grabbing an item, he warns he'll also have to fight seriously to block. He then says he'll strike back using the purpose of his swordsmanship. Maintaining pressure, his opponent continues channeling the enormous blow. Meanwhile, an alert warns that the protective barrier was nearly destroyed. Shouting that he's a fool, the old man watches the blow hit the ground. He then taunts Ajito, asking if that's all he can do. Believing he's won, he says that's it then. Suddenly, a small light emerges in the middle of his blow. Surprised, he notices something strange coming from his attack. Preparing himself, his opponent prepares a powerful counterattack. With his blow, he manages to completely nullify his rival's attack. Seeing the scene, the old man and the others are completely shocked. He then shouts that his blow disappeared without a trace. The old man refuses to believe it, saying that was impossible. Saying here he goes, the guy prepares to advance. Launching himself upward, he leaps toward his opponent. In the air, his rival stares at him as he approaches rapidly. Advancing, he lands a direct blow on his opponent. Hit square on, he reacts with an expression of pure pain. Standing in the arena, he apologizes to Riku. Bleeding heavily, he still feels the strong impact of the blow. He then says he couldn't go easy if he wanted to win. With his body wounded, he's thrown backward by the blow. As he falls, he asks if his opponent is mocking him. Hitting the ground, he promises he'll win next time. Watching everything, the old man just stares at the combat's result. They then announce that Ajito Mitsurugi is the grand victor. He says it's unbelievable that an F rank beat an S rank. Looking at his hand, he says the blow was stronger than last time. Recalling the fight, he begins to think of a possibility. He then realizes he might be able to use that technique. Changing scenes, we now see a large and imposing building. Already in the office, Riku complains of pain in front of the others. She asks him to be quiet, threatening to use her powers to make him sleep. In another location, the guildmaster begins an important announcement for the two. Calling them by name, he confirms the messages for Ajito and also Erika. They are then officially recognized as new members of the Special Forces Team Seraphim. Their new mission, according to the master, is to investigate the portals for the next battle. Questioning the decision, he asks if such a small team would really be enough. But the master assures that numbers aren't a problem, since they can command other members. Even an army of mages, he explains, can be commanded by them. In a quick memory of the past, it was Yuka who always led all the troops. Ending the meeting, the master tells them to go rest and talk tomorrow. At that exact moment, a guard enters, bringing urgent news to his superior. He reports that a mage was attacked and completely annihilated by a mysterious dragon. Shocked by the news, the master says she was an S-rank mage. With a serious look, he realizes the enemies have finally shown their faces. Taking the lead, he says he'll go on the mission that was assigned. Surprised, the guildmaster asks if he's sure about his decision. He states that he can't rest with his companions in imminent danger. Then his companion says he can't let her fight this battle alone. Seeing that, the girl says she can go since she didn't get hurt. Erika also volunteers, saying she can go fight alongside them. Agreeing, the master warns that he'll leave the mission with them for now. His final order is for them to rescue as many people as they can. Changing scenes, the Shinjuku Gate appears in the middle of the city. Inside the portal, a giant dragon roars that it's just getting warmed up. Behind the fire, one of the assistants reports how terrible the monster is. The group leader seems not to know how to react in that situation. Fallen on the ground, she apologizes for not being able to protect her team. Then she remembers the legendary swordsman's words about being a good leader. Screaming loudly, she begs to be used as a sacrifice to save the others. He holds her, asking her not to be reckless, because without her, they'd already be dead. Using her magic, she protects everyone while he remembers another phrase from the master. Irritated, she yells that he got everything wrong about her master's words. Starting to talk non-stop, she shows all the fear she was feeling at the moment. Pulling herself together, she states that she needs to act like a true leader for everyone. Then she orders him to take care of the wounded, because she's going to draw the dragon alone. Unable to obey, he says he can't flee and abandon his captain behind. Looking at the ground, the dragon asks if that was all their strength. With a smile, he says he kept them alive just to play around a bit. Advancing quickly, she launches a powerful strike directly against the giant creature, but her strike breaks, leaving her totally incredulous at what happened. Questioning if she's the leader, the dragon praises her for her courage to fight. Then he says he'll show her what a real attack is like. Dodging the strike, she asks if that's all the monster can do. Flying toward him, she yells, saying that size means nothing. Accepting the provocation, the dragon decides to play along with her for now. Spitting a fire blast, the creature attacks with full force in her direction. Worried, she says there are many wounded men on the battlefield around them. Then she realizes that their retreat will take time and put everyone in danger. Even if it costs a lot of magic, she decides she needs to try another strategy. Moving away, she reappears in another place, and the dragon finds her again. Taking a deep breath, she prepares for the next step of her grand plan. Remembering the master's words, she focuses her power for the final strike. A large portal then opens, and the dragon looks up in surprise. Seeing that, the creature is totally shocked by what was happening there. He asks if she opened an imaginary space to try to trap him. With a smile, she says that even mages like her have a way to win. Being pulled in, the dragon yells that he can't be defeated by a brat. Celebrating, she yells to everyone that she managed to accomplish her great feat. Tired, she lands on the ground, while her companion shouts for his captain. Seeing them there, she scolds them, saying they were supposed to have retreated. Asking about the dragon, he hears that she bet everything, and fortunately it worked. Her companions then praise her, leaving her very happy with the result. Thinking for a moment, she remembers a very important question about the dragon. Then she realizes he's one of the 6 dragons that tormented humanity. Dismissing the idea, she remembers that the master defeated that dragon 100 years ago. With a worried look, her partner starts to ask her a question. He then asks if the guild reinforcements have already arrived to help. Suddenly, a new enemy prepares a powerful strike in everyone's direction. Launching the attack, he hits the group dead on, throwing them far away. Sliding across the ground, she tries to stop her body after receiving the blow. Fallen everywhere, her companions are unconscious after the surprise attack. Looking at the enemy, she says that's impossible to have happened. With a smile, he says she can't pretend that he lost. Fallen on the ground, she finally realizes she already knows who he is. Stepping on her, he says if she knows him, he doesn't need to explain. He then asks where the master swordsman, Ajito Yatsurugi, is, revealing what he heard. Shocked by the news, she can't believe the master reincarnated. Threatening the girl, he says he'll spare her life if she tells everything. But she responds that unfortunately, she doesn't know absolutely anything about that matter. Even if she knew, she yells, saying she would never tell him anything. Irritated, he tells her to stop acting proud and obey orders. Being pressured, she quotes a famous phrase from the master about defeating evil. Hearing that, he decides he'll wait for the swordsman if he really shows up. Next, he lands a strong blow to show he's not playing around. Believing she's hiding something, he decides to change tactics to make her talk. Then, he prepares a new strike, giving the girl one last chance. Screaming with all her strength, she says she'll never tell, even if she dies. With a smile, he threatens that he'll have to attack her companions first. The strike advances toward her companions fallen on the ground. Desperate, she screams the names of everyone who's in danger. With a smile, he asks what she's going to do now. Attempting one last attack, she advances against him with a strike, but he stops the attack, warning that won't work. He then says time's up, and the master didn't come to save her. In despair, she screams for the great master swordsman's name. With her friends in danger, she hopes that he has reincarnated. She then asks him to appear and punish that rebel for her. Closing her eyes, she awaits the final impact of the enemy's blow. Suddenly, a single strike cuts through the darkness and the attack. Ajito appears, using a technique that destroys Rebel's blow. Seeing that, Rebel and the girl are shocked by the appearance. Speaking to the enemy, he says it's been a long time. He then asks if Rebel wants to be defeated by him again. Full of rage, Rebel screams Ajito's name with a smile. 100 years ago, during the War of the 6 Dragons, the confrontation against Rebel took place. Before the warrior, the gigantic creature roars and unleashes a massive amount of fire. Then, with a determined look, he shouts to Rebel that it was over. He prepares a sword strike, a special technique from his own swordsmanship. Advancing quickly, his precise strike finally hits the red creature's neck. After receiving the blow, the enormous dragon's head begins to fall slowly. Even defeated, he swears he'll never forget this humiliation, and that he'll kill him. Back to the present, 2 young men now face each other in a large courtyard. Warning the girl on the ground, he tells her to stay quiet. At this moment, he prepares to use another technique from his swordsmanship against the dragon. Without hesitation, he advances on him, delivering a blow with his powerful sword. His strike causes a massive explosion at the point of impact. She then recognizes the blow as the special attack that uses 6 elements together. Maintaining his posture, he continues to stare at the result of his devastating attack. She finally realizes she's before the legendary swordsman she's heard so much about. Recognizing the guy from behind, she wonders if he's Ajito Yatsurugi. At that moment, another man appears and says there's no mistaking that technique. The girl then shouts that they've finally met again after so long. With a furious look, he screams Ajito Yatsurugi's name with great hatred, screaming that he'll kill kill everyone, he launches a massive firestorm at them. Desperate at the scene, she begins screaming the names of her fallen companions. The powerful fire strike advances and ends up hitting her allies head-on. Seeing the danger, he screams the girl's name and quickly extends his hand. Using her ability, she creates a sacred shield to protect everyone there. Surprised by what just happened, she looks forward without understanding anything. Arriving to help, a girl asks if Misaki is okay, and she recognizes her. Protecting her friends, she stands while Misaki wonders who she is. Asking to leave introductions for later, she tells Misaki to fall back with the others. With a mocking smile, he says, "All those weaklings are in his way." Giving the order, he shouts to get rid of everyone there, except Ajito. Small creatures then emerge and begin attacking the groups of students present. Shouting Rebel's name, he questions him, saying he thought he was the target. Laughing at the situation, he says he needs to take out the trash first of all. Using the communicator, he calls for Riku and asks how things are at the exit. Near the exit, Riku shouts that a bunch of monsters suddenly appeared there. Angrily, he complains about how they dared put him in charge of that messed up exit. Without wasting time, he grabs one of the creatures attacking him by the neck. Then he unleashes a powerful blow, destroying all the monsters around him. He tells Ajito to leave the cleanup to him and get the team out of there. Passing the message, he asks Erika and Lena to evacuate the wounded from the location. Thoughtful, she says she doesn't like the idea of him facing a dragon alone right now. At that moment, the remaining creatures begin to quickly surround the two girls, but with a determined look, she says they don't seem to have another choice. Suddenly, enormous crystals form, trapping all the remaining creatures right there on the spot. Worried about him, she asks if he's sure he'll be okay alone. Ignoring the conversation, the enemy launches a strike with several fire rays in his direction, but he simply stops the blows, which explode as they approach his body. Saying he's fine, he asks her to just believe in him and his words. After a moment of silence, she finally agrees and decides to leave the location with everyone. Then the whole group starts running as far as they can from the battle. A bit shy, one of the girls calls out to the master swordsman who stayed behind. Screaming with all her strength, she says he can do it and that he can win the fight. While he keeps his back turned, she watches him move away with the other students. Waving his hand, he says goodbye without needing to look at her face. Noticing the wave, the girl gets all excited and shouts that he waved at her. When everyone leaves, he finally turns around and faces his opponent head-on now. With a smile on their faces, the two opponents stare at each other, ready for the confrontation. At this moment, both prepare their techniques for the climax of the great battle. Delivering his blow, he advances and causes a series of explosions throughout the location. With the impact of the blow, the ceiling of the place begins to crumble little by little. Excited, he advances and shouts that finally the two of them can fight each other. Maintaining his serious expression, he says that was actually his line. He then responds that it's good to hear that, because the fight wouldn't have any meaning. Remembering the past, he says that for his revenge to be complete, he needed something. He shouts that he needs to fight his opponent using his maximum strength. Raising his hand, he prepares a new strike with the power of magma. A circle forms under his feet, and the ground begins to bubble intensely. At this moment, several fire eruptions burst from the ground and go towards him. Screaming that he won't escape, his enemy launches several fire strikes, but he manages to dodge in the air, deflecting all the blows with his sword. Still in the air, he continues to deflect the blows that follow him relentlessly. His enemy realizes he's different from the rebel he knew in the past. Landing on the ground, he says that Ragna's blessing is quite troublesome. The blows he deflected come together and cause a massive explosion at the location. Even with the explosion, his opponent continues staring at him without showing any reaction. Then he prepares his final blow and asks if that was all he had. Preparing his final strike, he concentrates for the last attack of the battle. Seeing the preparation, his opponent stares at him with a look of pure surprise. Using his swordsmanship, he launches a powerful strike with all the elements combined. Hitting the enemy head-on, his blow drags him backward with difficulty. With great difficulty, he says that force was simply too overwhelming for him. In response, he raises his hand and creates a new weapon to counterattack. During the exchange, the two trade an incredible sequence of strikes throughout the hall. Being pushed backward, he gets irritated and prepares a new attack technique. Then, he launches several spherical strikes that scatter across the entire floor. Exploding in sequence, the spherical strikes cause a series of strong impacts. Shouting for him to take that, he prepares another even more powerful strike. Then the ground in front of him begins to tremble before erupting, resulting in a gigantic explosion. Everything in the area is destroyed by the impact. After the attack, he stands there panting amid all the destruction. Rebel was stronger than in the past and should have been the strongest, however. A large burst of light emerges from the middle of all the battle smoke. The power of Master Swordsman Ajito Yatsurugi was far greater than his. He then names his technique, the powerful and legendary Red Lotus Blade. Its power was far beyond Rebel's, hitting him squarely. Screaming in pain, he wonders how he can be taking fire damage now. Furious with the situation, he advances and begins trading blows with the swordsman. Shouting that he reincarnated, he tells his opponent not to underestimate him. He leaps and delivers a strong X-shaped strike in his direction. Shouting that this is the end, he prepares one last and powerful final strike. With his hand raised, he also prepares for what's coming next. Surprised by the scene, his opponent stares at him without understanding what's happening. A massive circle appears, and a great strike falls upon the swordsman. In the distance, Riku begins shouting, asking how he dares do this, and that he shouldn't have hurt his companions. The force of the blow is so strong that it ends up pushing Rebel far away. With a look of pure hatred, he prepares to attack Riku. Shouting how he dares, he launches a powerful strike in Riku's direction. Surprised by the speed, the boy realizes he won't be able to dodge the blow. At that moment, the swordsman appears and blocks the strike before it hits him. Telling him not to get distracted, he warns that his real opponent is him. With great anger, he then shouts Ajito's name very loudly. Flying at him, he delivers a new and powerful strike from top to bottom. Preparing for the clash, the two advance against each other in the Great Hall. His ice strike hits squarely, making his opponent scream in great pain. Shouting that he's a bastard, his face begins to freeze from the blow. Using his technique, he freezes him completely inside a pillar of ice. Seeing his defeated enemy, he asks if the Sakagami unit is alright. Saying that everyone escaped, he thanks him for being saved at the last second. Looking at the ice pillar, he asks if he's really one of the 6 dragons. With a serious look, he simply confirms that yes, he's absolutely certain. He explains that this is Rebel, the red dragon defeated 100 years ago. Surprised, he asks if it's the same one that Master Swordsman Ajito defeated. Saying it's surprising, he says he has something more important to ask now. He then asks if he heard Rebel call him Ajito Yatsurugi a while ago. Trying to change the subject, he asks about his injury and comments on the weather. Shouting for him to stop, he grabs him and demands that he confess what he's hiding. Asking him to wait, he warns that this way he'll end up hurting his injury. Realizing the situation, he thinks that maybe it's better to reveal his identity soon. Suddenly, the two are startled when they hear a mysterious voice coming from the ice. At that exact moment, the ice pillar that held him begins to crack. Saying he understood, he breaks free and says he knows his limit now. Looking at the two, he says that if that was all he could do, and says he can win the fight. Worried, he shouts Ajito's name, who asks him not to let his guard down. With a serious look, he says the enemy still hasn't shown his full power. Saying they studied humans, he reveals that this happened 100 years ago. Despite being weak, he says humans control magic better than dragons. Seeing the transformation begin, the two boys become completely paralyzed in place. Not believing what they see, they continue to stare at the scene right in front of them. Then, explaining that they acquired something, his feet begin to change shape. He says they combined the magical power of dragons with the control of humans. With a new smile, he reveals that all of this resulted in his new form. Revealing his hybrid form, he shows his newly acquired power to the two. Even facing the new form, Ajito remains serious before that threat in front of him. Recognizing that power, he realizes it's stronger than Britra's. He then reveals the reason he didn't start fighting using this form. With a roar, he fires a massive strike toward Riku and Ajito. The attack causes a gigantic explosion, destroying everything around with the impact. He continues explaining that the fight would be incredibly boring otherwise, and that there'd be no fun if he killed Ajito too quickly. Warning his companion, he says the enemy is coming at them with everything. In that moment, Rebel advances on him in the blink of an eye with full speed. Surprised by the charge, he notices his opponent is much faster now. Even with the speed, he manages to block the strike using his sword at the limit. Asking what's wrong, he continues unleashing a sequence of strikes without stopping. With a powerful clash, the two strikes end up meeting in the air with force. Commenting on the form, he prepares to use his most powerful strike. Laughing at the scene, he asks if Ajito is still so confident. Calling out his opponent, he provokes him and prepares a new strike with his hands. Screaming for him to stop underestimating him, he launches a powerful energy strike. Advancing against the strike, Rebel screams for the weakling in front of him to die already. He then manages to hold the strike, but ends up getting hit head-on by it. With the impact of the attack, his old chest wound starts bleeding again. Saying it doesn't matter, he shouts that he's a member of the Seraphim with pride. Going back to the past, a man asks him about a special task force he wanted. Explaining his idea, he says he wants to create the Seraphim, the strongest unit. He continues saying that even with the war's end, people still died on missions. Tired of all that, He says he wants to create the strongest unit, one that never loses. Back in the present, he says a wound like that won't be able to stop him. Then he releases a powerful strike, using his maximum voltage against his opponent. With a smile on his face, he asks what Rebel thought of that new strike. In that moment, Ajito desperately screams Riku's name to warn him of the danger. But Rebel suffers no damage, and with a quick strike, Rebel hits him head-on and gravely wounds him in the chest. The impact of the strike throws him forcefully against the wall of the place. Worried, Ajito asks if he's okay, but he says he can still fight. Even on the ground, he says the master swordsman and the heroes brought peace. With his last strength, he says they need to protect that peace at all costs. With that, he finally passes out and falls completely unconscious on the ground before his friend. Rebel then provokes him, saying all he has are weakling companions. Mocking him, he prepares to use one of his sword techniques. Naming his technique, he surprises Ajito, who stares at him, not believing what he hears. He then fires a massive strike from bottom to top toward the ceiling. His strike hits the ceiling and ends up breaking that place's barrier completely. Flying outside, Rebel is surprised to see he managed to break the gate. Saying now it's more interesting, he flies toward Ajito quickly. Then the two begin exchanging an incredible sequence of strikes in the middle of the sky. The two strikes clash in the air, causing a powerful impact explosion. With a roar, he prepares to launch a powerful strike against his opponent. He then launches several energy beams that go toward his enemy. Recognizing the technique, he says that's the famous Yatsurugi swordsmanship. In the sky, Ajito summons several swords that now completely surround his enemy. With a determined look, he names his technique as the illusory sword dance. The swords hit him from all sides, causing a massive explosion at the location. Back on the ground, he prepares a new strike with his sword in hand. With a quick movement, he delivers a powerful cutting strike in his direction. After the strike, he continues staring at his opponent with a very serious look. Saying the strike is strong, he admits it works well against the weaker ones. But he finishes the sentence saying that won't work against him at all. The two then prepare for the next great confrontation in the middle of the sky. He then prepares to use his own macabre dance against his great opponent. Advancing, he launches a sequence of several fire strikes toward Ajito. Feeling the impact of the strike, he can't avoid expressing his pain. Screaming for him to take that, Rebel launches a powerful strike. The strike hits Ajito with force, thrown far away. Ajito falls to the ground hard. Panting, he realizes his last strike wasn't enough to defeat him. With a victorious smile, he shouts to Ajito that the battle had finally ended. He then begins gathering an enormous amount of energy in a magic circle. With a look of contempt, he states that at that moment he's much stronger. Using his technique, he fires a gigantic energy strike against his opponent. The powerful strike descends from the skies at high speed and hits the ground. Then the attack causes a gigantic explosion, which destroys everything around it. Giving a loud laugh, he shouts victoriously, saying he had finally achieved that. Looking at the explosion, he celebrates for finally defeating that bastard Ajito. Thinking about the future, he says he can now become even stronger. With an ambitious look, he shouts he'll finally be able to rule that entire planet. Suddenly, a massive energy explosion emerges, catching Rebel totally by surprise. Screaming it's impossible, he wonders how his opponent survived that strike. From within the light, Ajito emerges, saying he's been thinking about this for 100 years. He then reveals he was thinking about how to further improve his final technique. Believing he can do this in this body, he faces Rebel, who screams his name. Enveloped by a powerful energy, he prepares for the purpose of his swordsmanship. He then reveals the name of the technique, his true final dawn. The scene shifts. A girl calls out for Shiori in the forest, telling her they should go home. Camera in hand, she shouts firmly that she's not going anywhere. She says she hasn't found the golden hammer snake yet and won't return without a scoop. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind rushes past them both, startling them on the spot. They hear a noise and wonder if it's the snake coming their way. Running toward the sound, she shouts that she's going to catch the golden snake. With a determined smile on her face, she yells excitedly that she finally got it. Looking up at the sky, she sees two figures battling and doesn't understand what's happening. The journalist Shiori Iri, 25 years old, stares at the scene completely shocked. Using the camera's zoom, she manages to witness everything that was happening there. She sees a young man with power strong enough to affect the entire environment. Then she sees a guy armed with a sword, standing against evil. Back to Ajito, he prepares for the purpose of his famous swordsmanship. Rebel then asks if he really thinks improving that technique can defeat him. Shouting that it's not enough, he prepares to use his macabre dance. He charges with everything, but Ajito manages to dodge all the strikes in the air. Unable to hit him, he shouts that he can't strike the swordsman at all. Launching a new blow, he tries to hit hit Ajito, who dodges once more. He then defends against a powerful strike that sends him flying far away. He shouts that it's impossible, because Ajito's power has already surpassed his hybrid form. Using his swordsmanship, he prepares a double strike, a powerful storm of blades. The two attacks clash and create a flash that illuminates the entire sky. Facing the attack, Rebel watches the combined strike coming rapidly in his direction. With great difficulty, he tries to defend against the sequence of blows hitting him. Flying away, he seems to have been badly wounded by the last major strike. Shouting that he's a bastard, he launches several fire strikes without stopping. The strikes hit everything around, causing a series of huge explosions in the sky. Appearing behind him, Ajito prepares for the next major blow of the battle. With his sword, he delivers a swift strike, the sound of thunder's repetition. With a powerful shock, his blow hits Rebel square on with multiple attacks. Then he continues the assault, striking his opponent with the sound of lightning. Screaming in pain, Rebel is thrown hard to the ground by the force of the blow. After finishing the attack, he begins to descend slowly toward the ground. He realizes his body has no magic, which makes his strike stronger. In other words, he says that in a body without magic, he has incomparable potential. Readying his sword, he says the answer to all his power lies there. With a determined look, he prepares to show the result of his evolution. He then unleashes his supreme blade, which can even kill a dragon. Hit square on by the blow, Rebel screams in pain from the blade's impact. As he's consumed by the power, he screams in rage at not accepting defeat. With a furious shout, he releases a final and desperate explosion of power. Screaming very loud, he says he won't accept that defeat at all. He continues saying that in his hybrid form, he couldn't possibly. He finishes the sentence saying it was impossible to lose as he fills himself with power. Shouting that he won't lose, he uses his final strike, the powerful howl of Rebel. With a roar, he fires the gigantic energy blast in his opponent's direction. Saying he won't make the same mistake again, he readies himself with his sword. He then says he'll use that power to save the world once and for all. With a determined look, he prepares to end that battle once and for all. Preparing for the final confrontation, he assumes his battle stance with the sword. He then reveals the name of the strike, the powerful and final total annihilation. The two strikes prepare to collide in the air with devastating force. Then the attacks clash, and his strike begins to push back Rebel's. Surprised by the scene, he shouts that he's being pushed back by the blow. His strike is completely swallowed by Ajito's, which advances relentlessly toward him. Not believing it, he wonders how he's being pushed back like this. Being consumed by the power, he screams Ajito's name one last time. Desperate, the strike pierces through everything, cutting the sky and mountains with its power. Sheathing his sword, he observes the result of the battle finally ended by his blow. With a smile on his face, he finally says goodbye to his old enemy Rebel. The scene shifts. A bus travels down a dark road during the night. Inside the bus, the journalist types excitedly, saying she witnessed something too incredible. She writes her story, a scoop about the mysterious descendant of the master swordsman. The day after the fight, she finishes her report on the battle against Rebel. Before the group, the master says the 6 dragons have finally started to move. Praising her work, he congratulates her, but she says it was nothing much. Riku then explains that Ajito did all the work and that he was knocked out. Having a question for him, the master turns to Ajito seriously. Just then, news about the legendary master swordsman's descendant begins circulating on the internet. Seeing that Ajito is in the news, he says he felt a distant presence during the fight. Lena comments that the guild treats S ranks like superheroes and walking billboards. She says the fact that Ajito is on the news shouldn't be a problem. Making this clear, the master states that his existence doesn't make logical sense. He continues, saying that Ajito has power that surpasses S-rank mages. Hearing the conversation, Erika keeps watching everything with a somewhat serious expression. She then adds that according to the report, Rebel also seemed to know him well. With a direct look, he asks Ajito who he really is. Thinking about it, Riku agrees there's no way he's just a rookie. She says it's impossible for a swordsman without magic to surpass the guild's S-ranks. With a smile on her face, Misaki simply calls him Master Swordsman with admiration. He then says, it seems he can finally tell everyone the truth. Beginning his explanation, he prepares to reveal the whole truth to the group. Revealing his identity, he says he is the reincarnated Ajito Yatsurugi, the legendary swordsman. Everyone in the room stares at him with expressions of total surprise and disbelief at the revelation. He explains that he died 100 years ago, in a battle where he couldn't defeat Britra. Remembering the past, he says the war was in vain, and that he needed another chance. He continues, saying he doesn't know how he reincarnated, but it's a miraculous opportunity. Shocked, the master asks if his soul traveled 100 years into the future. He shouts that it's no wonder he's so strong, since he's a living legend. Lena says that must be why she felt a strange aura from him all along. Misaki is very shocked. He says he doesn't know why he reincarnated, but they can't neglect the portals. He explains they would be in the hands of the 6 dragons trying to awaken the god Ragna. Asking everyone, he says to lend their strength to this difficult mission. Everyone in the room continues to listen to his request with great attention and in silence. Saying he believes in him, the master leaves the future in his hands, Master Swordsman. With the decision made, the group of young people seems much more relieved now. Excited, Riku says he can't wait to fight alongside the Master Swordsman. She then says she won't treat him as special, but will show proper respect. Erika thinks she's happy because she wanted him to see her great-grandmother once more. Seeing Miss Misaki crying, she approaches a bit worried about the situation. She then shouts that she knew it, that he is the true and legendary Master Agito. Seeing the exaggerated reaction, the group feels a bit awkward with that whole scene. She says she read everything about him and can't believe she met him in person. Riku then lifts him up, while she continues to admire him up close. Just then, he starts running with Agito, while she desperately tries to catch up to them. Annoyed by the joke, she yells for them to stop that immediately. Saying he has a question, he wants to know if they have any good swords there. He then shows his sword, saying it didn't survive his last great battle. Asking if that's the highest quality sword, he hears that basically yes. Saying that's not good, he laments that his old blacksmith isn't alive anymore. The mention of the name leaves everyone in the room quite surprised and confused. Riku and Lena then look at each other, confused by the name they just heard. She asks who that person is, and he says it's a blacksmith he knew. With an excited smile, she shouts that she knew it and recognized that famous name. She then begins to tell the story of Dosetsu Suikane, the legendary blacksmith. Summing it all up, she says the main point is that Dosetsu has a descendant. Hearing the news, he's surprised and stares at the girl with great attention. She reveals her name is Makoto Suikane, and that he can ask her. Asking about Makoto, he wants to know where she is, and hears it's in Purgatory. Purgatory is a high-level gate where one can mine high-quality ores. Riku says Makoto lives there trying to forge the greatest sword ever made. Thinking about it, he says he'll visit Purgatory to get a new sword. Erika asks if he's going alone, and he says they can't risk sending more people. Now he says he just needs an answer from them to move forward. Elsewhere, a red-haired man dismisses a group of soldiers in training. After the thanks, he turns and begins walking away from the place. He then receives the message about the Master Swordsman having reincarnated in our era. Hearing that he's now a member of the Seraphim, he continues reading the message. He's then enveloped by a light and seems to be receiving an important message. Using a telesphere, a magical tool, he begins communicating with someone distant. With a serious and attentive look, he continues receiving the message through the sphere. Agito's message says a crisis is coming, and asks for help. Holding the sphere, he seems to have received Agito's message successfully. With a strong grip, he crushes the communication sphere in his hand with anger. Repeating his name, she seems not to have liked that message she received at all. He then says it will be her who protects this world, not the swordsman Agito. Arriving at the S-rank gate, he finally enters the dangerous Purgatory in search of the blacksmith. Amid the scenery of fire and lava, he wonders if this is the workshop. Walking through the place, he comes across a mysterious figure in his path. Shouting his name, the figure asks him why he was in that place. Surprised by the encounter, he stares at him and tries to recognize the figure in front of him. Remembering the past, he recalls one of the heroes who fought by his side. He then recognizes him, calling him by his name, the great Shin Kagura. With a smile, he says he's the captain of the Seraphim and a descendant of Yukito. With a smile, Agito says he knew, and that it wasn't just a coincidence. He says he was just going to get his weapon from Makoto and leave the place. Thinking out loud, he says he was starting to lose hope of finding help. Shin says the guildmaster contacted him, and that he came to see Makoto. Extending his hand to the newcomer, he prepares to make an important request. Calling him by name, he asks Shin to lend him his power. He finishes the request saying they should protect the world together from the great threat. With a slap, he refuses Agito's hand and stares at him with contempt. Making one thing very clear, he prepares to deliver his message. With a serious look, he says he will never be a friend to the swordsman. Agito asks what he means, and reminds him that the 6 dragons have returned. Saying there's no room for a hero of the past, he stares at him with anger. anger. He shouts that he will be the one to protect the world, not the swordsman Ajito. Then, with his weapon in hand, he prepares for a direct confrontation right there. The two stare at each other, ready to see who is the strongest between them. Gripping his sword, he prepares for the strike coming in his direction. From the sky, a rain of diamonds begins to fall on the two warriors. Without hesitation, the two prepare to deflect all the attacks approaching them. Starting the confrontation, they deflect all the strikes with their weapons with mastery. The last strikes clash, ending the diamond rain with a flash. He says he thought he'd exploited an opening, but that he's the master swordsman. At that moment, Ajito senses a powerful aura coming from somewhere nearby. A man appears, saying that if they were weaker, he wouldn't want to fight. The figure then reveals himself as Gildiga, the powerful diamond dragon of the earth. The two turn to the dragon, and Shin shouts Gildiga's name in surprise. Realizing the situation, Ajito says this is the second dragon they've encountered. With a gesture, Gildiga summons an army of stone golems from the lava floor. He says that now that they've gathered, he'll need to do something important. With a serious look, he says he'll have to keep them trapped there in that place. Saying this saves trouble, Shin says one of the dragons came to them. With a smile, he says the moment is perfect for what he wants to do. He shouts that he'll prove they don't need a master swordsman to win. Using his spear, he prepares his special technique, the powerful heat wave. The strike hits the dragon head-on, causing a huge explosion at the impact site. Even with the strike, the spear seems to have only scratched the dragon's skin. Crossing his arms, he seems to have felt absolutely nothing from the blow received. Surprised by the scene, Shin wonders how he didn't even make a scratch. Shouting to Shin, he tells him not to be so reckless in his attacks. Activating his technique, he advances and defends a strike that was heading towards Shin. He then wonders if this was the same technique that managed to defeat Rebel, saying that, unfortunately for him, things wouldn't be so easy this time. The dragon says his body will be like armor, and that he won't scratch it. With a serious look, he observes the confrontation unfolding before him. Gildiga advances and lands a powerful blow on Ajito with his fist. Taking the hit, Ajito spits and stares at the stone monster with surprise. Ajito is thrown far away, but the ground trembles with the arrival of more. Large rocks fall from the ceiling, while the army of golems continues to approach. Shocked, Shin wonders how he deflected the attack of the powerful master swordsman. He thinks the blow was strong, but it didn't damage him because his sword is damaged. Then, the golems that were on the ground begin to rise one by one. Surrounded by his golems, Shin feels the pressure and power of the stone army. The dragon says the ore there is excellent and is full of magical power. He explains that his ability makes him stronger the more magic there is in the earth. With a superior look, he says he's stronger here than Rebel in his hybrid form. He finishes saying that his stone puppets are as strong as a dragon helper. Telling them to enjoy it, he disappears and leaves the two alone with the golems. Surrounded by the golems, Shin fights with his spear to try to defeat them all. Realizing the strategy, he says the dragon is just trying to buy time. He wonders why he would do that, while one of the golems attacks him. With a powerful blow, the golem hits Shin squarely and throws him far away. Even after defending himself, several golems jump in his direction to attack him. Joining their fists, the golems come down hard and cause a huge explosion. Observing the scene, Gildiga wonders about the abilities of his stone puppets. Shin then asks if they regenerate even after turning to dust from his blows. Releasing his energy, he prepares to use an area strike and destroy them all. Using his spear, he launches a strike that hits all the golems at the same time. The golems are destroyed, and their pieces fall scattered all over the ground, but in the blink of an eye, the golems begin to regenerate from the ground again. Irritated by the situation, he prepares for the next wave of stone enemies. One of the rocks falling in his direction is destroyed by a sword strike. Ajito then begins to walk, while the two observe what he's going to do. With a serious look, he prepares to show his true power to everyone. He then walks to the center of the arena, positioning himself for the great battle. Saying they're in his way, he removes his tie and dress shirt. As the golems advance, he prepares to use his combat techniques. With his hands and fists, he concentrates his energy for the next great attack. Showing his style, he reveals his powerful and legendary Yatsurugi martial arts. Using his palms, he unleashes a sequence of strikes that destroy the golems. The two stare at him, surprised that he knows how to use martial arts with mastery. He then asks if they thought he couldn't fight without a sword. All the golems on the battlefield are destroyed by his strikes in sequence. The pieces of the golems fall everywhere, and Shin observes everything in silence. After the attack, the destroyed golems remain silent and motionless on the ground. Surprised by the scene, he wonders why the golems aren't regenerating. He explains that he used the wind power he gathered with his previous technique. He continues, saying that Gildiga's magic covers the golems and regenerates them. He finishes, saying that when the magic disperses, the golems become useless. With a confident smile, he stares at the dragon, ready for the next move. The dragon, however, continues to stare at him with a serious and unwavering expression. He says he talks as if it were easy, but that it's not that good. Joining his hands, he prepares for the next great strike of the battle. With a determined look, he says that next, he's going to shove his fist into him. With a serious look, Shin says he's figured out how everything works in that place. Saying it'll be easy now, he spins his spear and prepares a new strike. Using his spear, he spins and attacks all the golems around him with one blow. Naming his technique, he uses the powerful and swift strike of the celestial wind. With a roar, his strike destroys all the golems at once with its power. The pieces of the golems fly everywhere, completely destroyed by his attack. After destroying them all, he turns and faces the dragon with his spear in hand. The dragon then laments, saying he ruined his precious stone puppets. At that moment, Ajito charges forward and prepares a powerful strike with his flaming fist. With a determined look, he prepares his attack to hit the dragon head on. He then lands a powerful blow on the dragon's chest, releasing all his energy. The dragon braces himself and takes Ajito's blow without even moving. After the attack, Ajito stares him down, ready for whatever comes next. He says he didn't want to use that, since it drains a lot of energy at once. Then, rocks begin to cover the dragon's body, like stone armor. A large rock forms on the ground as the two watch carefully. The ground starts to crack, and the rock prepares to reveal something. With a smile, he says he has no choice and releases his new form. The two prepare to fight against the powerful hybrid form of the dragon Gildiga. He then leaps toward Ajito, ready for the first attack of the battle. With a quick movement, Ajito prepares his fist to counter the dragon's strike. The blow hits the dragon, but his super hard skin protects him from the impact. Feeling the impact on his arm, he stares at the dragon with an expression of pain. Far from there, Shin readies his spear to use one of his strongest techniques. He then uses his powerful technique, the feared and legendary Dragon Slayer. The strike hits the dragon dead on, but he defends it with his ability. The spear can't pierce his skin, and Shin stares him down with a serious look. He then leaps to the side, preparing for the next attack against the dragon. Ajito explains that the hybrid form increases all the dragon's stats, not just defense. With his body cracking, the dragon prepares to show his true power. The dragon attacks Ajito with a powerful blow, but he manages to defend himself. He's then thrown far away, while Shin watches the scene carefully. Shin tries to land a strike, but the dragon defends it with his hardened arm. The two face each other, determined to win that difficult and complicated battle. Ajito then releases a wave of energy, preparing for the next attack. He continues to release his energy as he prepares to fight with everything. Shin gets irritated with the situation and prepares to use another one of his strikes. He then leaps and strikes the ground with his spear, creating a crater. The blow hits the volcano, which starts to tremble from the attack's impact. At that moment, the volcano begins to erupt with full force. A massive explosion of lava happens, showing the power of that dangerous place. He says his body is in super hard mode and that nothing will affect him. He then summons new golems, stronger and ready for the great battle. Saying he could simply finish them off, he stares them down with a serious look. Ajito realizes the dragon has strengthened his soldiers for the next fight. The dragon prepares and creates a magic circle for a new powerful strike. He then launches a rain of diamonds that attacks the two warriors relentlessly. Surrounded, they face the continuous magical attacks and the dragon's stone soldiers. Ajito says that even in hybrid form, the location of his core is the same. Asking Shin to attack together, he says they just need to break his armor. With a war cry, Shin charges forward, saying to focus the attacks on the defense. Telling him to shut up, Shin stares him down with a look of pure rage. He says he already warned that he's the one who will be Earth's protector. He shouts that someone like Ajito, who died a long time ago, wouldn't understand anything. With a powerful blow, he breaks the ground and launches himself toward the dragon. He finishes the sentence, saying Ajito doesn't know what it's like to carry that weight. In the past, 12-year-old Shin asks his great-grandfather about his ambition. The great hero Yukito Kagura asks the boy what he means by that. He says he thinks his great-grandfather should be more famous and recognized by everyone. At school, he hears that the 6 dragons were defeated by the 4 great heroes. The teacher then reveals that Yukito Kagura is his classmate Shin's great-grandfather. Hearing the announcement, he becomes happy and smiles proudly at his classmates. But his classmates start mocking him, saying the 4 great heroes never really existed. They say the heroes hid behind the master swordsman and did nothing. Very angry, he gets irritated by his classmates' comments. Then he starts fighting with the boys and his friends ask him to stop. Later, his great-grandfather asks him not to fight with his classmates. He says that even after the war, he continued to fight and built the guild. He then asks why he never wanted to be the true hero of the story. With a smile, his great-grandfather says he dreamed of that in the past. Yes. He then says the world no longer needs a hero like he was. He says there are skilled students and many talented children for the future. With a smile, he says they are all his greatest pride and joy. Hearing his great-grandfather's words, young Shin looks at him with admiration. He then advises him, saying that the title of hero is not the most important thing. Remembering the past, he says they all protected the world together as a team. With a smile, he says he wants to continue doing that for a long time. Hearing the advice, young Shin smiles and seems to understand his great-grandfather's words. 5 years later, at his great-grandfather's funeral, Shin watches him with sadness. Alone in the hall, he says goodbye and stares at the photo of the hero who is gone. Telling him to rest in peace, he promises he will continue his great legacy. But he hears whispers with people saying he never stood out in the end. People continue to mock, saying the title of hero was wasted on him. With an angry look, he wonders what people are saying about him. The whispers continue, with everyone talking only about the master swordsman and his power. Very angry, he wonders why they only talk about the master swordsman. He thinks that if the master is praised, his great-grandfather deserves the same. Afraid, he wonders what will happen to his great-grandfather's legacy now. His father then approaches and says that this is their reality now, Shin. With a serious look, his father says that for them, peace is something else. He says peace is not something you fight for or protect. He finishes by saying that peace is something taken for granted, always. He says that with grandfather's death, his ideals will soon be forgotten. Grabbing his son, he stares at him with a look of despair and concern. Shouting, he says Shin needs to do that he needs to become a hero. He says he had no talent, but his son can achieve what he could not. He begs Shin to become a hero who surpasses the master swordsman. He finishes by saying that's how he can continue his grandfather's legacy. With a serious look, young Shin seems to understand the weight of those words. With a determined look, he says he will do that no matter what it takes. Back in the present, he launches a powerful blow with his spear against the dragon. He remembers that for 4 years, he dedicated himself to honing his great skills. Completing all kinds of missions, he defeated very strong and formidable enemies. Promising he will restore his family's former glory with his own hands, he says he will continue his great-grandfather's legacy no matter what happens. With a shout, he says he will be the protector of the world, not the swordsman. Shouting for him, Ajito alerts him about the danger approaching rapidly. He then warns him that the golems are coming from above to attack them with everything. He then spins his spear and destroys all the golems that were attacking him. The dragon taunts him, saying he's daydreaming during the fight. Realizing the trap, Shin sees the dragon has hidden among the stone soldiers. Being hit, he can't avoid the blow and feels the impact with pain. The dragon then attacks him with a powerful energy blast at point-blank range. The two turn to the scene, shocked by the dragon's surprise attack. Grabbing his fist, Ajito screams in pain as the dragon attacks him relentlessly. With a shout, he releases a large amount of energy from his fist. He then hits the dragon squarely, causing a huge explosion of impact. The blow sends the dragon to the ground with everything. The attack pierces through the floor and causes a large crater with its force. Panting and wounded, Ajito knows that battle isn't over. He says he doesn't know why he despises him or what burden he carries, but he asks that, even if just for this fight, he lend him his strength. With a smile, he says he wants to continue protecting the world they defended together. Hearing his words, Shin stares at him with a look of surprise and astonishment. Remembering his great-grandfather's words, he seems to have understood what he needs to do. The dragon praises the blow, but says that's all he can do without a sword. He says that, however, without a sword, that's all he can do. He finishes by saying that to save the world, he needs to be stronger than that. Warning Ajito, he says he won't go easy in the fight because of him. He says not to blame him if he gets caught in his attacks and spins his spear. Asking to synchronize the attack, he puts his companion on alert, suggesting they break the armor together. His partner agrees and prepares. Then with both of them ready, they advance together into combat. Flying at high speed, the two rush rapidly toward the enemy. Facing the horned adversary, they prepare for the big confrontation. Jumping together, they descend with a combined strike toward the opponent. Defending the attacks, the enemy blocks the duo's sequence of blows. With the impact of the strikes, the adversary seems to notice their strategy. They say they're faster and that they'll catch him soon. Noticing the improvement, he comments that their movements are better now. When they attack again, the opponent prepares a powerful counterattack. Launching a massive blow, he attacks Ajito with force. Grabbing both at once, he manages to trap the duo in his hands. He then warns that if he caught both of them, it would all be over. Delivering a potent strike, he hits one of the captured heroes dead on. With the force of the impact, Various debris is hurled in all directions. Then a surprise attack comes from behind, hitting the enemy square on. Thanking the help, he says they're finally even now. Using a martial art, he creates multiple copies of himself on the field. With his technique, he launches several simultaneous strikes against the great enemy. Perceiving the tactic, the enemy says they're aiming for his core. Then one of the clones lands a precise blow right on his weak point. High above, his partner prepares for a devastating aerial attack. Spinning his weapon, he descends with a powerful strike toward the opponent. Then the enemy understands he was preparing for the real attack, saying that unfortunately for them, something unexpected happens with his body. Revealing new hands, he says he still has a few tricks up his sleeve. Shouting, Ajito warns he has more free hands than the adversary himself. With swift strikes, the clones manage to break the arms that emerged. Without hesitation, the final blow hits the enemy's core with full force. With the attack connected, the warrior finishes the strike by driving the weapon into the opponent. With a furious look, the enemy prepares for one last, desperate attack. Screaming, he releases a huge amount of power from his own body. Feeling the ground shake, the duo of heroes stays alert for danger. Then gigantic rock structures rise from the earth, surprising the two warriors. He realizes the last attack wasn't enough to end it all. His partner then says they only have one option left now. Determined, they advance, saying they'll keep attacking until the enemy falls. Launching multiple blows, they attack relentlessly while the opponent begins to laugh. Grabbing both of them, he praises, saying their attacks were great. With a quick movement, he hurls one of the heroes far away from there. Warning that this is his final attack, he tells them both to prepare. Then, an enormous magical symbol forms in the sky and on the ground around them. From the ground then, several energy pillars surround the duo on all sides. Floating in the air, he warns that if the blow hits, he wins the fight. Floating in the air, he says if they pierce through the attack and reach his core. Completing the sentence, he says if they do that, victory will be theirs. Facing the threat, the warrior plants himself on the ground and readies his spear. Then a massive eruption of energy advances with full force against the duo. Impressed by the size, he says it's huge and hears the call to retreat. Saying he still doesn't approve of him, he faces the giant energy ball alone. Having a flashback, he remembers his great-grandfather, who he deeply respected. He then says he doesn't want to see the wishes of his great-grandfather, who he respects so much. Gathering energy in his spear, he prepares for a massive counterattack. Completing his words, he says he doesn't want to see all of that become nothing. Using his technique, he launches a powerful strike toward the enemy attack. Then, the two attacks clash in the air with devastating force. With the impact, his blow begins to crack the opponent's attack at the center. Breaking through the barrier, his energy spear advances toward the enemy. Observing the attack, he says all of that was quite disappointing in the end. Questioning what was said, he asks if the enemy is sure about that. Then the enemy notices something unexpected and suddenly goes on alert in combat. Looking for his partner, the enemy wonders where he could be now. Answering the call, the warrior emerges high above the horned adversary. Gathering energy in his hands, he prepares a strike with his special technique. Using his martial art, he descends with a devastating blow on the opponent's head. With the impact, a gigantic column of energy rises to the heavens with force. After the attack, he floats in the middle of all the raised dust. Breathing deeply, he seems quite tired after using such a powerful blow. Emerging in the smoke, the enemy says it's a shame things ended this way. Looking at the hero, he says he hoped the fight would be different. Revealing a hole in his chest, he says he wanted to enjoy the fight a little more. With the fatal blow, the enemy's body is thrown backward, lifeless. Then his body falls to the ground with an impact that raises a lot of dust. Exhausted after the long battle, the two warriors breathe with difficulty. Demanding an answer, he asks why the enemy came to that place. He then questions directly what the fallen adversary's true objective was. His partner comments that he was trying to drag out the fight as long as possible. In the flashback, he realizes the enemy got excited and forgot to buy time. Nearly defeated, the enemy asks if they happen to know about hot springs. He then explains how magma heats the water, which rises to the surface. Not understanding anything, he asks what the enemy means by that. Revealing the plan, he says the guild's land is rich in energy. He then asks what they think is beneath the main building. Having a revelation, he desperately screams Ragna's name as he understands the plan. With a smile, the fallen enemy confirms all the suspicions of the two heroes. He then remembers the dragon god that the guild master had mentioned. Receiving a call, he hears that the guild headquarters has been ambushed. The person warns that 4 of the 6 dragons are attacking the headquarters. He then says it was only natural that he was sent on that mission. Completing the sentence, he says he was assigned to delay the two heroes there. Realizing the tactic, he says their timing was too good. Warning that they must hurry, the enemy alerts them about the consequences. He then says that if they don't stop them, humanity will be destroyed. With the ground breaking, the enemy's body falls into the lava pit. Then his body sinks into the magma, disappearing completely into the crater. Observing the scene, the two heroes remain silent before his sacrifice. From inside the lava, he says it was the first time in 100 years he finally enjoyed a real fight. After that, his body sinks for good and disappears into the lava. Shouting, he says everyone is in danger if they don't return. Seeing his injured hand, he says he won't be able to use his fists anymore. Standing in front of a cave, they see Makoto's workshop. He then says he needs a weapon, anything he can use. Saying not to worry, he responds to the alert about the dragon's attack. He explains he wasn't the only member to return, guaranteeing they'll arrive in time. Changing scenes, the story goes back to a few minutes earlier at the guild gate. At this, two members talk worriedly about the return of the 6 legendary dragons. Trying to calm him, one says everything will be fine because the captain has returned. Confirming everyone's return, he says they probably won't need to do anything. Suddenly, a mysterious figure approaches and stops in front of the 2 guards. Looking at the building, the newcomer says his allies are already busy. With a smile, he says it's time to clean up all the trash. One of the guards then calls to him, warning that the area is for authorized personnel only. As he was about to finish the sentence, a blow pierces through the guard's body instantly. At this, the other guard is hit by a blow that goes completely through him. Calling him an insignificant human, he shows his contempt for the wounded guard. Irritated, he says they dare not confuse him with some simple child. Revealing his identity, he introduces himself as the Dragon of Wind and Contempt. Complaining about the appearance, he questions why he has that child form. Shouting that it's an ambush, the guard warns that an enemy is attacking. Gathering energy, the Wind Dragon prepares to launch a great blow. With a gust, the guard is thrown far away before finishing the sentence. Announcing his arrival, he tells the humans to behold him with attention. From afar, a man observes the destruction at the guild building with a smile. Being one of the dragon's allies, he says the plan has finally begun. In a flashback, his master says he will attack the sword master. He then orders his servant to watch the perimeter and handle the reinforcements. Warning to be careful, he says some humans can fight on equal terms. Thinking about the master's words, he boasts about his own strength now. With one of the 6 dragons gone, he sees a great opportunity to grow. As he was about to claim victory, a surprise blow hits him square on. Appearing suddenly, a man tells him to give up on that promotion he so desires. Putting a cigarette in his mouth, he remains calm before the wounded enemy. Arriving with his allies, he greets the dragons in a very mocking way. Observing the explosion, he sees the guild building being destroyed in the distance. After agreeing, the 2 prepare to spring into action immediately. Saying it's time to work, the vice captain prepares for battle. In the central command room, they gather to discuss the next strategy. Being healed, he thanks Lena, saying he's feeling much better now. The leader then says they're going to discuss how to deal with the 6 dragons. Saying the situation is difficult, he reveals he's had a new idea. He suggests they could use a hybrid form to fight on equal footing. Suddenly, a powerful explosion shakes the room, startling everyone there. Sensing an immense magical power, the 2 girls are completely shocked by the situation. He realizes the power is stronger than the dragon they faced before. Shouting that another dragon has arrived, he alerts everyone to the imminent danger. Desperate, the leader remembers there are civilians on the lower floors of the building. Facing the threat, he orders that everyone needs to fight the invader immediately. She then realizes that dragons can easily infiltrate the city in human form. With the swordmaster attacking from afar, she suspects there may be more enemies. Seeing danger approaching, he shouts Erika's name. Asking to use the shield, she creates a barrier and protects the group from the attack. Asking if everyone is okay, she receives thanks from her frightened companion. She then warns them to keep their guard up, because the real fight is about to begin now. Looking at the destroyed door, they see a new enemy emerging from the darkness. Then the mysterious woman asks if they're the group known as Seraphim. With a confident look, she says she's going to see what they're capable of. Introducing herself, she says she's going to play around a bit with all the heroes present. He realizes her power is different from what they felt on the floor below. Frightened by the situation, the girl realizes 2 dragons are attacking at once. Saying not to worry, she warns she'll only fight until Ragna wakes up. Manipulating water, she creates several creatures to attack the group of heroes there. With the pressure of the attack, the floor and walls begin to crack all around. She says sometimes she doesn't know her own strength when it comes to fighting. With a threatening smile, she asks them to try to stay alive in the battle. Switching to the guild's basement, a man descends to the lowest level. Confident, he says he knew he'd find it right there in that hidden place. Before the entrance, he calls it the gateway to the underworld of the dead. Activating a panel, he uses his authority to open the secret passage there. As the door opens, he says he'll finally become the next king of everything. Revealing his identity, he shows himself as the Dragon of Darkness, Britra. Outside, the guild guards desperately shout that they're under ambush. Running, they organize themselves to find the invaders who attacked the location. Sitting on a bench, a man observes the whole situation from afar on his phone. He then says he's happy to have manipulated the draws that were made, revealing himself as the fairy dragon. He says observing is perfect for relaxing. He comments that his ally will take care of all the dirty work and confusion. When he was distracted, Tetsuya appears silently right behind his bench. With a single finger, he launches a strike that causes a huge explosion. After the impact, he stares at the wreckage with a serious and focused look. Seeing the warrior in front of him, he seems surprised by the unexpected appearance. He then says that apparently, he won't be able to slack off anymore. Saying he's different, the warrior stares at him with seriousness in his eyes. At that, his companion steps forward, asking to leave the enemy to him. Confirming his suspicions, he asks if that's one of the legendary 6 dragons. Revealing his name, he says he wants the reward to buy new clothes. Giving a thumbs up, his leader approves the idea and seems to agree with him. All excited, his partner shouts saying she also wants to go shopping. She complains that they ruin their clothes all the time in that thankless job. Staring at the trio, the dragon asks if they're really the Seraphim group. Saying he'll finish quickly, he warns he needs to read his comic in peace. Agreeing with the idea, she says they were also thinking the same thing. With his technique, he summons a shadow servant for the battle that begins. Right after, the creature rapidly advances toward the dragon for the first strike. Saying let's begin, she launches a support spell to strengthen her ally. With the support spell activated, he prepares for the combined attack. At that, the shadow creature begins to writhe and change form. Then multiple eyes emerge glowing from within the darkness of the summoning. Before the dragon, the creature reveals itself as a giant wolf of pure shadow. Perceiving the tactic, he says one of them must have an amplification ability. Giving the order, he commands his creature to advance against the enemy immediately. With a swift leap, the shadow creature lunges at the dragon. While the attack happens, the other group members watch everything carefully. Hitting the target, the creature's strike causes a massive impact on the adversary. He asks if other members of the Seraphim squad also returned with him. Confirming their return, he says 3 other members came back to the base too. Explaining about the reinforcements, he says the vice captain is the strongest. He then states that the vice captain is probably the strongest member of the group. Upon hearing the news, his partner is visibly surprised by the information. Saying he came to find Makoto, he believes the others will hold off the attack. Just then, a giant figure approaches them, interrupting their conversation. Suddenly, a furious voice screams at them both, startling them. Coming out of the cave, a woman asks why they were making noise in her workshop. In a rage, she yells that they ruined her newest weapon creation. She then puts all the blame on both of them, shouting with a very angry face. Recognizing the woman, he shouts Mikoto's name, the blacksmith's descendant. When he tries to explain the emergency, she yells saying she doesn't care. Furiously, she says nothing is more important than forging her weapons. Arguing with him, she complains that he came back earlier than they agreed before. Surprised by the scene, he says he's never seen his friend like this before. Pointing at the other one, the blacksmith calls him with a very loud shout. Saying she doesn't recognize him, she asks if he's the master swordsman. Shocked by the question, he wants to know how she knows him so well. Analyzing his posture, she says he's always ready for an attack. Concluding her analysis, she states he can only be the master swordsman. Impressed, he praises the great skill of the famous blacksmith's descendant. Seeing the weapon on the ground, she asks what happened to the broken sword. Answering the question, he says the sword broke in a previous fight. Starting to cry, she picks up the sword from the ground and calls it poor thing. Lamenting for the weapon, she says its condition is horrible and very sad. Kneeling on the ground, she promises she'll fix it and make it good as new. With tears in her eyes, the blacksmith Makoto continues lamenting the weapon's state. Changing scenes, it's shown that she inherited the talent of her legendary ancestor. Reading her description, he asks if the blacksmith is always like that. Running to the workshop, she asks them to wait, and he decides to follow. Arriving at the workshop, the place is filled with weapons and battle equipment. Asking about the weapon he ordered, she says she finished the work some time ago. She then points to a spear, saying it's that one over in the corner. Presenting the weapon, she says the spear's name is Ultra Kagura Gungnir MK2. The 3 then observe the new spear, which stands prominently in the middle of the room. Finding the name ridiculous, he says that's way too tacky for his taste. His partner comments the name is tacky, even for him who came from the past. Praising the creation, he says the name is wonderful, and questions their taste. Confused, he wonders if tacky names are in fashion now. Testing the new weapon, he spins the spear and prepares to attack a dummy. She warns that the dummy is made of the most resistant material that exists. With a single blow, he completely destroys the very expensive dummy. Saying it's not bad, he tells Makoto he'll take the spear. Saying she has a weapon, she asks if he expected her to come. Touching the wall, she says her great-grandfather always talked about him when he drank. In a flashback, she remembers him blaming himself for his friend's death. She thought if she had given him a better weapon, he wouldn't have died. With a serious look, he listens in silence to her family's story. She then tells him they forged a single sword for over 100 years. Before a new door, she says they prepared for the war. Completing the sentence, she says they did everything to fulfill their role. Revealing the weapon, she shows her family's masterpiece, the Dragon Slayer. With a serious face, he observes the sword that was made especially for him. Holding the sword, she remembers the old master swordsman she met before. Handing over the weapon, she says the sword finally belongs to him now. Holding the sword, he prepares for battle with renewed determination. Feeling the weapon, he realizes the sword seems very familiar to him. In the flashback, it's shown they were partners for many, many years. Forging the sword, he could clearly feel all his friends' will. Remembering the past, the two blacksmiths put all their effort into that weapon. Holding the blade, he felt all the will that was incorporated into the sword. Then a voice from the past asks him not to die this time in battle. With a smile, he thanks Dosetsu for the incredible weapon he received. Calling him to the fight, his friend says they need to go right now. Then they warn that all his companions are waiting for him there. After the dust settles, the group observes the result of the attack. Surprised, the girl comments that it was a precise and clean hit. Still, the adversary doesn't seem to have suffered a single scratch. Suddenly, an explosion happens in a building very far from there. Worried about the collapse, he warns that they need to split up now. Turning to Nagi, he asks him to keep holding the enemy here. Then he turns to Asami, who listens to everything without understanding. Apologizing, she warns that she thinks her friend is in danger. Saying she's heading there, she simply leaps toward the building. He then says it's all right and that he has an order. Looking seriously at the enemy, he tells Nagi to survive at any cost. On the other side, the enemy tells them to go and run away once and for all. Floating, the enemy launches multiple strikes in the direction of all of them. Being hit head-on, one of the girls screams while trying to dodge. Then her partner creates a barrier, shouting for Misaki to come to her. Shouting Lena's name, he prepares, and she confirms. The two then position themselves to use their strongest attacks. Firing together, they launch the combined attack against the adversary, but the strikes seem to have no effect, being defended easily. Seeing the result, he's completely shocked by what happened. She then says she loves energetic prey because the fun increases. Frightened, the girls comment that the strikes didn't even scratch her. Then, her partner asks if he also noticed that. Confirming, he responds yes, that he also managed to notice. He says she dodged at the last second, revealing her weakness. To break through the defense, he explains they would need to use a hybrid form. Preparing himself, he decides that maybe it's time to use that technique. Concentrating all his energy, he prepares for the next action. Suddenly, a strong impact hits the wall near the adversary. Arriving with everything, a girl lands in the middle of the confrontation. From below, the character observes the result of her sudden arrival. Not understanding anything, he's shocked by the girl's unexpected appearance. Recognizing the newcomer, her companions shout her name. Warning that it's good to see them, she says she'll take over the fight. Impressed by her presence, the two girls look on in shock. Changing scenes, he's standing alone in front of a crater. Asking for the enemy to appear, he states he knows he didn't die. Emerging calmly, the opponent complains, saying how annoying that is. He says there was no need to notice him so quickly like that. Without warning, the creature advances and lands a blow on his neck. After attacking, the creature pulls away, leaving the man wounded. Observing the enemy, he finally recognizes him as the Dragon of Light. Saying he already warned him, his creatures advance toward the enemy. With a cold look, he orders the adversary to die at once. Finding it funny, the enemy simply mocks the whole situation. Then he changes his expression, saying that Asifa is very annoying. Changing scenes, Asifa complains that he's bored with weak opponents. Looking at the defeated enemies, he regrets not going with his companion. Tetsuya then appears, asking if he wants a real fight. Noticing the bodies disappeared, he asks who that old man is. He then introduces himself, saying his name is Tetsuya Wolf Yagyu. With an air of superiority, he says he'll crush him completely. Throwing the cigarette away, the object goes flying toward Asifa. In an instant, the man appears surprisingly right behind the opponent. Questioning Asifa, he asks if he's showing off his speed. Turning around, he says even so he can still see him. Floating in the air, he says the word triple to Asifa. Not understanding how he did that, Asifa is completely shocked. Summoning a light, he prepares to cut all existing things. Then he fires the strike, launching a massive attack downward. With immense force, the strike hits the ground and explodes. After After the smoke dissipates, he remains standing in the same place. Lighting a cigarette, Tetsuya comments that this is the first time since Shin that someone managed to withstand that attack, seeing Asifa survive. Giving a laugh, Asifa seems to be enjoying the fight very much. Praising the old man, he says he's been bored since he was revived. Finally finding a real fight, he proposes they fight to the death. With an irritated look, Tetsuya just calls Asifa a brat. Split into three, the ambush against the dragons presents its first confrontation. Meanwhile, Nagi Sakaki faces the powerful fairy dragon head-on. In the third battle, Tetsuya Wolf Yagyu stands before the Dragon of Contempt. With a smile, Asifa says the fight continues until one of them dies. Looking irritated, Tetsuya just calls him a brat and gets ready. Going back in time, the leader explains the plan for the attack to begin. He reveals that their biggest obstacle will be the master swordsman Ajito. The first part of the plan is to keep the swordsman away from headquarters. All of this so they can finally awaken the sleeping dragon god. Giving the final order, he tells them to kill any human in their way. Hearing the order, the four chosen for the mission prepare themselves. Arriving at the location, the villains meet up before starting the attack. He then says that their companion was a fool for dying early. Asking about humans, Asifa doesn't understand what he means. He explains that for them, the weak are devoured by the strong. Not understanding, Asifa asks, what's the problem with that conversation? He then says that humans possess a different kind of strength. Saying they seem weak, he remembers a simple meal, but he admits that sometimes humans manage to move him deeply. Showing a card, he questions if there's another way besides fighting. Then he turns and asks if Asifa finds him strange. With indifference, Asifa answers that it doesn't matter one bit. Jumping, he says he only cares about fighting someone strong. He says he's anxious for the world they're going to create soon. Turning around, he says the swordsman is who he wants to face the most. Questioning his partner, he asks if only the swordsman is worth it. With a smile, he feels the two can finally understand each other. Staying silent, Asifa seems to think a bit about the conversation. Back to the other fight, he analyzes the enemy's impressive speed. With a big smile, he finds the whole situation very entertaining. Asking if he's stronger, Asifa questions him about the swordsman. With a mocking air, he asks if the little boy is afraid. Shaking his head, he prepares to start the attack. Screaming that he's not a little boy, he charges forward with everything. He then boasts about being the fastest of the 6 dragons. With a smile, he says he'll reveal all his tricks. Advancing for the strike, he's surprised by the word quadruple. Floating in the air, Tetsuya stares down at him after the blow. Realizing the new speed, he's amazed by his opponent's power. Firing a strike from above, he forces Asifa to retreat. Creating a whirlwind, he prepares for the immediate counterattack. Launching the great whirlwind, he attacks with his full strength. Seeing the reaction, he wants to know if the dragon understands the essence. Concentrating his power, he prepares to flow with ferocity. Pouring out his energy, he fires the attack called Light of Illusion. Dodging the attacks, he jumps to escape the multiple light strikes. With a simple gesture, Tetsuya calls him to continue the combat. Being caught by surprise, he sees the strikes coming directly from the ground. Barely dodging, he realizes the enemy controls the attacks freely. Understanding the fighting style, he concludes that Tetsuya is a counter-attacker. Analyzing the situation, he smiles knowing his opponent's specialty. Now having more options, he prepares his own strike to counter. Launching a sextuple whirlwind, he attacks with immense power. With a confident smile, he says he's blocked all escape routes. Advancing, he shouts that this is the old man's end and will attack. Blowing smoke, he calmly tells Asifa to simply stop. Suddenly, all the boy's movement freezes in midair. Now paralyzed, he's surrounded by several orbs of luminous energy. Seeing all of that, he understands the true nature of Tetsuya's power. Changing scenes, Tetsuya walks while the building explodes in the background. In silence, Tetsuya just observes the situation unfolding ahead. Floating in the air, Asifa says he finally understood everything now. He then shouts that his opponent's ability is to manipulate time. Explaining the technique, he says Tetsuya accelerated and stopped time. Asking if he's right, Tetsuya just responds with who knows. Praising Asifa, he questions if he's going to run away and go home. Shouting no, he points and says they must continue the fight. While preparing, he asks how long Tetsuya stops time. Continuing the question, he suggests that maybe it's just 3 seconds. Saying it doesn't matter, he releases his hybrid form, promising to tear through time. Surrounded by intense energy, he faces Tetsuya, ready to attack. Seeing the hybrid form, Tetsuya says he now has no other choice. Preparing himself, he says adults must stop brats like him. Being flexible, wind magic can be used for both attack and defense. However, Its lower attack power led to his previous defeat. Facing each other, they prepare for the continuation of combat. Smiling, he raises his hand, initiating his newest devastating strike. Using the Great Catastrophe, he attacks with a gale of pure destruction. Caught by surprise, Tetsuya screams as he's hit by the windstorm. Impressed, he questions the massive power increase of the hybrid form. Seizing the chance, Asifa charges at him with speed. Landing a direct hit, he throws his opponent backward with force. He prepares another strike, aiming to hit Tetsuya's face. But Tetsuya counterattacks, using his quadruple ability once more. Complaining about the situation, he notices that Asifa's speed has also increased. Attacking with his light of illusion, he fires multiple energy blasts. Even being hit, 151-year-old Asifa endures. It's then revealed that in human age, he would only be 14 years old. Being very young, he shouldn't compare to other ancient dragons. So the question remains how he became one of the 6 dragons. Showing his talent, the Dragon of Contempt has an aptitude for combat. If he were more mature, the fight from a century ago would be different. With a smile, the two face each other, ready to continue the battle. This ability would have given the swordsman Ajito much more trouble. Not understanding, he wonders how this can be happening in the fight. Screaming, he questions how Asifa adapted so quickly to the strikes. Bringing his hands together, he prepares a new strike with a different energy. Flying over the city, he's surrounded by dozens of energy spheres. With a smile, he says the same type of attack used before will never work against him more than a single time in battle. Using the Scarlet Tempest, he launches all the strikes downward. Being surrounded, Tetsuya is caught in the middle of all the attacks. Converging at once, the strikes generate a massive and powerful explosion. Observing the smoke, Asifa floats amid the city's destruction. Landing on the ground, he prepares to continue the confrontation against Tetsuya. Looking at the building, he says he wants to ask something important. He then questions if Tetsuya has another trick besides stopping time. With a smile, he says Asifa is very funny and mocks him. He asks if Asifa thinks he would reveal his secret so easily. Revealing his trump card, he says the name is Final Gale. In the middle of his own windstorm, he faces his floating opponent. He then asks again if the old man has any other tricks. With a serious look, he warns that the fight is about to end. Tetsuya responds that he's not the one who decides the end of the fight. He says he carries the will of all his fallen comrades. Shifting to a flashback, a city is being attacked a year ago. Running to help, they scream that Team C is in danger. Lamenting the situation, he gets angry that they've suffered more casualties. Screaming, he says Seraphim can't handle large-scale missions. Just listening, his companion stays silent with his head down. Asking for calm, the leader appears and talks about their quick response. He explains that thanks to that, they managed to save many innocent civilians. Saying casualties are inevitable, he tries to calm the agitated young man. His partner then says the dead also had families and friends. Caught by surprise, the leader listens to everything without having a response. Turning around, he asks them not to betray their comrades' trust. Then he asks why they think the team managed to endure. He tells them they wanted to prevent anyone else from entering the fight. Explaining the situation, he says everyone felt the same as them. According to him, the dead left them to continue the important mission. So he questions if they should really be blaming themselves now. In silence, the two young men process their leader's harsh words. Taking the lead, he asks the team leaders to report. Asking for a map of the area, he warns they need to reconsider the strategy. Saying they must look to the future, the swordsman's will now guides them. With a firm posture, the leader prepares to give the new orders. Back to the fight, he floats and prepares to speak with Asifa. He then warns it will only take 3 moves to defeat him completely. First surprised by the statement, Asifa then starts laughing loudly. Screaming for him to try, Asifa releases his final gale with everything. Activating his vision of the future, Tetsuya prepares for the counterattack. Watching the attack, debris begins falling in his direction. It's then explained that humans can predict the future a little bit. With this prediction, the brain connects to the body before the action. Speeding up his thoughts, he manages to anticipate his rival's movements. Able to see the future, he predicts every strike that will come. Facing the windstorm, he analyzes the complex structure of the entire attack. Although it looks solid, the wind curtain actually has several openings. He then notices that the green parts are timed detonators. Advancing through the middle of the attack, he manages to touch them without problems. As he escapes, a massive explosion happens right behind him. Completing the first movement, he successfully escapes the wind barrier. Asifa warns that he's now entering the most dangerous area. Suddenly, an energy blast hits him head-on by surprise. Then he finds himself completely surrounded by Asifa's illusion blades. Extending his hand, he says, "The enemy can stop time." With a smile, he warns that this will only change how he dies. Launching his attack, Countless strikes rise toward Tetsuya. Thinking to himself, he knows he'll die if he advances or if he stops. But with his vision of the future, he manages to see a gap in the attack. Dodging everything, he cuts and parries each strike with perfection. Completing his second movement, he escapes and advances against Asifa. Surprised, he praises the old man for managing to dodge everything. But then Tetsuya says that even so, the fight is finally over. A change in air pressure affects the balance of the nervous system. In a high-speed battle, this tactic proved very effective. He realizes this is something his vision of the future doesn't predict. The choice for the final blow wasn't any special attack. Wrapping his hand in energy, he prepares for the last strike. He knew the best way was to use his strongest weapon. Screaming with a smile, he says this is the end for Tetsuya. Pointing a finger, Tetsuya prepares for his third and final movement. A powerful energy blast hits Asifa head-on by surprise. Screaming in pain, he doesn't understand what Tetsuya did to hit him. Walking with difficulty, he can barely stay on his feet after the fight. He then reveals that a strike beyond perception was his plan. When he launched his attack, Asifa moved in closer. Approaching, he fell into the trap exactly as Tetsuya expected. Fallen on the ground, Asifa listens to Tetsuya speak his final words. With his opponent defeated, he declares himself the great victor. Fallen and wounded, Asifa can barely speak properly after the blow. Screaming, he gets irritated and says that all of it was very unfair. He then shouts that Tetsuya cheated, but he refutes the accusation. Pointing at Asifa, he asks if he has any last words. With one last question, he asks if Tetsuya is just a human. Being just a human, he wonders how Tetsuya is so strong. He then questions Asifa, asking what he's fighting for. He says if it's for himself, he'll never feel true strength. He explains that fighting for someone breaks all limits of power. Surprised by the answer, Asifa grows thoughtful about the conversation. Remembering from before, he understands that humans have a different strength. With a smile, he says he's decided what he's going to do now. Pointing at Tetsuya, he promises he'll defeat him no matter what. He warns that next time he'll win for sure. Impressed by the attitude, he sees Asifa fly away. He then uses a strike to launch Asifa far away. Irritated, he shouts that he lost today but that the fight was fun. He asks them to play again and calls Tetsuya an old geezer. Flying over the city, he looks at the damage the fight caused. Shooting into the distance, he flies away from the city at high speed. Flying away, he says he now understands what his companion was talking about. As he leaves, he comments that humans are much more interesting. Watching Asifa disappear, he regrets not being able to track him anymore. Thinking about the swordsman, he concludes that Ajito was a monster too. Standing alone, he gets irritated remembering he was called an old geezer. And so, the winner of the fight against the dragon is Tetsuya Wolf Yagyu. Changing scenes, the top of a building begins to shake and crumble. Back at the other location, Asami now stands face to face with her friends. Totally surprised, they shout Asami's name without understanding anything. Running toward her, Asami asks them to wait and she'll explain later. With a smile, she says they have another priority right now. Pointing at the enemy, she says they need to give her a proper welcome. With great rage, the enemy screams about how they dared to land a hit. Swearing revenge, she says the girl will regret this in hell. Mocking the threat, she just repeats the word regret with a smile. Calling the enemy an old hag, she apologizes for what she's about to do. With a big smile, she warns that she's decided not to regret anything anymore. Furious, she says she won't let them make a fool of her. Launching her attack, she traps the girls in an impenetrable tide. Startled, she realizes the water barrier is going to separate them now. Shouting Lena's name, he prepares to try to do something, but she tells him to go, as she wants to talk to her friend. With a serious look, he says he'll leave the dragon with her. Standing on the other side, the two watch the barrier close completely. In an instant, they're transported to a completely different place. Surprised, she questions whether the enemy pulled them into her own territory. Turning around, she says she has something important to tell the two of them. With a smile, she asks if they still remember that day. Still confused, she says yes. She remembers that event. Confirming the answer, the other girl says it would be impossible to forget. Going back 2 years, the three were taking a practical exam. She says if they defeat the demon, they'll have the best grades in the class. With a smile, she says Lena worries too much about things. The other girl agrees, saying they'll be fine like always. Still, Lena remains a bit apprehensive about the situation. Remembering the past, she recounts that she was much weaker and shyer. She says Erika and Asami always included her in every conversation. Being only a rank C, she was afraid of putting her friends in danger. Slapping her, Asami tells her to stop with all that nonsense. Hugging her friend, she tells her to stop worrying about it. She then says her friend just needs a little experience. Agreeing, the other one tells them to just do what they always do. Extending her hand, she tells her friend to trust her companions. With a smile, the two friends look at her with great confidence and calm. Thinking to herself, she believed there was no way they could lose. Suddenly, the demon grows stronger. surprising the three girls. Frightened, she screams that a lesser demon can't be this strong. Ordering them to fall back, she tells the two to get to the entrance. Thinking to herself, she figures it was a unique and special monster. That monster was too powerful for them to face head-on. Desperate, she screams for her friend to run and get out of there. But Asami is struck full force. Back in the present, she says she thought a lot about what went wrong. With a sad look, she says the first one to blame was herself. If she had fought properly, she believes none of that would have happened. But the other girl says the fault was hers for being too confident. Shouting, Asami says the fault wasn't either of theirs. She then asks the two to listen to her very carefully. Suddenly, the water barrier closes, engulfing all three. The enemy then reveals they're inside her own barrier. In her impenetrable tide hell, she now has total control. Without the other mages, she says she's going to have fun with them. Promising to have fun, the enemy launches an attack in their direction. With a smile, Lena says giving water to an ice mage was a terrible move on her part and freezes all the water. Turning around, she says she's not the same weak little girl from before. Then she warns she can do this alone and will be really quick. Surprised by the attitude, Asami can't say a single word. Her other friend yells no because they don't know what to expect. Angrily, the enemy says they don't know their place. Emerging from the water, she says what Lena did was useless. She then screams that was nothing more than a bug bite. Yelling for them to be careful, Erika creates a sacred shield and protects them. She then realizes the barrier wasn't just to separate them. It's then revealed that the 6 dragons gained new hybrid powers. The power chosen by Nish was this large-scale barrier magic. Though not that strong, she can pull targets into her territory. Being the perfect ability, she can toy with her targets before killing. Screaming that she's on another level, she belittles the girl's power. Fighting against the vast ocean, the girl tries to protect her friends. With an evil smile, she says they can't win with weak powers. Her water strikes begin to emerge from all sides of the sanctuary. Protected by the barrier, they watch the attacks coming non-stop. Extending her hand, she strains to keep the sanctuary standing. Creating an energy dome, she protects them from all sides. With a smile, the enemy becomes irritated by those girls' audacity. Then she launches a series of powerful strikes against the sanctuary. With great effort, she manages to withstand the blows and maintain protection. Asking to come up with a strategy, she's interrupted by her friend. She then says she'll use her strongest spell to defeat the dragon. Grabbing her friend, she yells that none of them can win alone. Remembering the past, she says back then she was the first to fall. She says when she woke up, Asami was badly hurt after the fight. Crying, she screams she couldn't do anything while the two fought. Turning around, she says she needs to make up for being weak in the past. Determined, she says if she doesn't, she'll never be able to move forward. Surprised, she realizes her friend's words were for herself. With a sad look, Asami prepares to speak to the two friends. Asking them to listen, she says the fault for everything was hers. Turning to Lena, she says what happened was her fault. With a smile, she asks them to please blame her for the past. Faced with a strange energy, the two just watch the scene. Calling Masaki to leave, she asks if they're really going to abandon them. Explaining that the fight isn't theirs anymore, he says he already warned them. Shouting, she says that's not what she meant before. Asking her to feel the magic, they look at a large gate. Recognizing the energy, she realizes it's Captain Shin's magic. Surprised by the presence, he can't believe what he's sensing. Making a decision, she says she'll bring the captain as fast as possible. Agreeing with the girl, he smiles and prepares to leave. Saying he'll leave it to her, he runs toward his objective. Back in the present, she hopes Lena will be okay and watches her. Shifting to 2 years ago, the scene shows a guild building. With a sudden scream, she wakes up startled in the hospital bed. Beside the bed, 2 men say she's finally awake. Introducing themselves as mages, they say they need to discuss something with her. Still confused, she asks if she wasn't just taking the exam. Remembering the past, she sees herself in the middle of the fight against the demon. He then explains that Asami's ability went out of control at that moment. Not understanding anything, she listens to the man's words in shock. Back in the past, they were preparing for another attack attempt. Screaming Aries' name, she launches a spell toward her friend. With the buff applied, the demon seems to have gotten even stronger. With a terrifying look, the creature prepares to attack the girls. Screaming, the demon charges full force toward the 3 girls. Scared by the revelation, she looks at the 2 men in disbelief. Throwing down the newspapers, they show the news that came out about the incident. Shocked by the headlines, she sees what happened to her friends. Bringing her hands to her face, she says it was all her fault. He says that until she controls her power, the guild will watch over her. Warning it will take 5 years, he promises they'll take care of her. Screaming no, no, she refuses to accept that situation suddenly. Complaining, she says 5 years is too long for her to wait. Angry, she says that while she's there, her friends are suffering. She remembers that Erica and Lena are being criticized for no reason at all. Determined, she says she needs to go back and apologize to them right away. Looking at the two of them, she begs for help, saying she'll do anything. With great determination, she asks them to train her immediately. In a training room, the two men observe her from afar. Shouting at her, he says she's not controlling her magic. Training, she attacks Shin with a series of quick strikes. He then warns that if she continues like this, she'll lead her friends to death. Screaming in rage, she keeps attacking Shin with more strikes. Landing a hit, Shin throws her away with an attack. Being thrown back, she falls to the ground with great difficulty. Shin says this result was expected from the beginning. Warning that's enough, Shin says Asami won't hold up, but she gets up, asking them to train one more time. Panting, she faces the two with a look of pure determination. Back then, it was remorse that drove her to keep training. Angry at herself, she burned inside with her feelings. Strangely, she remembers an old photo of the three friends together. Remembering her friend, she realizes that Erica and Lena felt the same. With the desire to apologize, she trained and became the strongest. Back in the present, Asami prepares to talk to them both. Taking the blame, she says everything that happened was because of her. She says Erica's family faced criticism because of her. Also, she says people started looking down on Lena, asking them to hate her. She just wants the two to be friends again. Walking toward her, the two friends approach in silence. Suddenly, one of them grabs her by the neck, surprising everyone. Shouting, they ask why she didn't tell them all this. Not understanding the reaction, Asami is completely confused and speechless. She then shouts that she tried to contact her many times, but without success. With tears in her eyes, the other says she thought it was too late. Crying, Asami apologizes and hugs her two friends tightly. With a big smile, they thank her for coming back to see them. She then asks if the two friends finally forgive her for everything. With a laugh, Asami brags about being rank S now. Suddenly, their energy barrier starts to crack and break. Breaking through the barrier, the enemy emerges from inside a strange portal. With a smile, she says she now understands why the spell was familiar. She then reveals that the girl is a descendant of her old enemy. Mocking, she says the spell is weak when used by someone else. With an evil laugh, she says the swordsman would find her pathetic. Laughing at the situation, Asami says it's been a while since they laughed together. With a confident smile, she agrees it really has been a long time. Calling her friends, she asks if they're ready to fight. Remembering the past, the three smile together, ready for combat. With great determination, they shout that they'll defeat the dragon together. Mocking them, Nish asks if their teamwork is really going to work. Then she launches several strikes, finishing her question. To advance faster, the whole group suddenly increases their speed. Running over the water, they get closer and closer to the enemy. One of the girls prepares a spell to try to stop Nish. Suddenly, a giant ice wall rises right in front of them. Breaking through the ice, one of the girls charges forward with everything. Warning that they're not done yet, she shows her determination for combat. Right after, another girl readies her sword skill. Meanwhile, the last one in the group creates a protective shield. Seeing that, Nish starts to ask them another mocking question. He responds by launching two powerful strikes toward the group, but one of the attacks is successfully blocked midway. Ready for impact, a girl prepares a magic defense circle. The enemy's strikes then collide against the newly created barrier. Surprised by so much power, he wonders how she used so many spells. Increasing the strength in her legs, a girl advances with a swift strike. A massive wave of water rises up and hits the enemy directly. Celebrating the hit, one of the girls shouts excitedly that it was a good one. Noticing something, another girl says no, that wasn't the end. She laments that the blow wasn't enough to defeat him. From afar, Nish simply says that's fine, facing the group. Taking back what he said, he tells them they've proven they're not trash. Then he warns that to make up for it, he'll finish them off using his power. Seeing that he wasn't hurt, one of them can't believe what she's seeing. Coming to a conclusion, another says all that's left is to use a mass attack, but Asami fears this will overload her friends. She worries they'll end up fainting again because of it. Very apprehensive, she swallows hard, showing her great concern. Seeing her worry, her friends approach to support her. Confident, one of them says they should go all out now. Asking her not to worry, the other assures they can handle it. Together, they promise that this time everyone will return home safely. Nodding, the last girl in the group accepts their plan. Then the three advance, running toward the enemy who's preparing an attack. Shouting that it's useless, Nish ends up giving the idea of freezing everything. Determined, they decide to follow the plan and prepare a great combined spell. To initiate the attack, one of the girls begins conjuring her magic. Right after, a giant ice wave is launched by the trio. Surprised, he wonders if they really intend to freeze the entire area. But the power power is so great that even they begin to freeze. Realizing the situation, he says their bodies will give out first. Even freezing bit by bit, they continue keeping focus on their objective. Shifting to a memory, a man calls the two for a conversation. He hands over a paper, asking them to remember the notes if they fight alone. Attentive, the two girls receive the instruction that was passed to them. One of them reads the paper, hoping to never need to use that important advice. Thanking him, the other girl says she'll definitely make good use of it. With a smile, he then says goodbye, asking them to take care of everything. Back in the present, he says she's gotten stronger over these years. Reading the note, she remembers the warning about her power not keeping up. The advice said for her to trust her friend if she needed to. Understanding the message, she finally realizes what needed to be done there. She shouts that now she understands what it means to trust her companions. Seeing the sea freezing, he wonders if they don't fear for their lives. Angrily, he says he'll turn them into fish food soon. At that moment, Nish launches a powerful strike against the group. One of the girls shouts for the other, who responds that everything's all right. Then, the sword girl prepares to use her special ability. Remembering the note, she recalls the permission to use that dangerous technique. That note said he believed in her to know the right time. Swearing to never lose anyone again, she asks if her friend doesn't agree. Inside the magic circle, Nish prepares to launch his strike. Giving an evil laugh, he shouts that he finally managed to hit them. Suddenly, his strike is blocked by a giant shield. Not understanding anything, he just wonders what just happened. Protected by the shield, they finally activate their combined sanctuary technique. At that, he recognizes the technique, saying it's stronger than before. Releasing her magic, the ice girl concentrates all her power. While freezing, he desperately shouts, asking them to stop this. Unwilling to accept it, he shouts that he can't lose to girls like them. Even freezing, they say the enemy was strong, but not strong enough. Smiling, she adds that the difference is having someone to trust. And Asami advances using several quick enhancement abilities. With his last breath, Nish curses the humans who defeated him there. Finishing everything, a flaming strike hits the enemy with full force. Remembering the past, he says he almost gave up, but never surrendered. At that, memories of his old defeats and pains appear in his mind. After thanking them, Nish's frozen body begins to shatter. Worried, the girls call out their friends' names to see how they are. Turning to them with a smile, the girl finally says she's back. When the portal closes, she falls to the ground, saying that was rough. Realizing where they are, she asks if this is the guild's alley. Remembering the ending, she says things got really dangerous. Suddenly, a magic circle appears on the ground, startling them all. Screaming in pain, the villain re-emerges from inside that unexpected portal. Frightened, one of the girls desperately screams that the enemy is still alive. Warning she won't last, she swears she'll take them all down with her. Without reacting, the two girls just watch the scene, completely paralyzed. Desperate, the pink-haired girl warns that they're out of magic. Screaming for them to die, the enemy rushes forward to attack the one on the ground. Running to help, one of them screams the name of her friend in danger. Lamenting the situation, she complains that their reunion couldn't end like this. Seeing her friends running, she thinks she had just made peace with them. Closing her eyes, she braces herself to receive the incoming blow. Resigned to her fate, she turns to face the final attack. Screaming desperately, the girl runs without knowing what to do in that situation. Remembering the tragedy, she recalls the last request for her to flee from there. Unable to believe it, she just screams no, trying to stop the attack. At that moment, a sword strike cuts through the air and heads in that direction. With a single blow, the attack hits the enemy dead on by surprise. Seeing the scene, the other two girls are left completely without reaction. Defeated, the villain says this is the second time she's lost to him. She adds, saying his name is Ajido, the master of the sword. With sword in hand, he orders the enemy to stay away from his companions. Then the villain's body begins to turn to dust and disappears completely. With a sad look, one of the girls apologizes for what happened. Smiling, he says it wasn't his intention to arrive so late. Crying, she asks how a great hero can be so late. Thanking him profusely, she cries with relief that he arrived in time. Praising the good work, he says they did really well. He then asks them to thank the fallen girl, who brought him there. From afar, one of them watches the scene, recognizing that he's strong. She thinks he seems to have gotten even stronger since the fight. Seeing the two talking, the pink-haired girl finally understands the situation. With surprise, she realizes that man is the master of the sword. Suddenly, a dark energy emerges and leaves all three very frightened. Without being shaken, he says the enemies finally decided to show their faces. Then a new warrior appears, saying everything went as expected. Then several portals open, revealing a large horde of dangerous monsters. Grabbing his sword, he comments that the villain calls for reinforcements when in danger. The captain advances, ordering him to leave all the monsters for him to handle. Through memories, he swears he doesn't intend to make the wrong decision anymore. He finishes the sentence, guaranteeing he'll never make the same mistake again. Giving a smile, he agrees and decides to trust his captain. Alone on the battlefield, the captain prepares for combat. Looking at the destroyed city, he faces the enormous horde of monsters ahead. In a memory, he recalls the guard who used to stay at the old gate. That guard always greeted him with a smile despite everything. But now, the place was completely overrun by monsters of all kinds. Remembering the past, he says there used to be a hot dog stand there. When he was a student, he always bought his hot dogs at that very place. With a war cry, all the monsters advance together for the attack. Spinning his weapon, he delivers a circular blow that hits many enemies. With the impact of the attack, several monsters are defeated at once. Determined, he warns he won't let them destroy his memories. He then shouts that he won't allow them to crush his treasures again. Watching from afar, one of the girls says the captain seems different. The other responds that the expression on his face just seems gentler. Asking if something happened, he responds yes, a lot happened between them. With a serious look, he observes what remained of the place ahead. Lamenting the destruction, he says they completely ravaged that place. He fears everything will repeat like 100 years ago if Ragnar returns. In fact, he believes the catastrophe might be even worse this time. Turning to the group, he warns he won't let them act anymore. With determination, he declares that the grudge of 100 years finally ends here. Suddenly, a huge explosion happens in a building right in the city center. Then the ground shakes quite a bit, startling the entire group standing there. He says it was a collision of magics, and thinks one of them was Riku's. Running toward the noise, he's called by one of the girls. Apologizing, she says she needs to tell him something very important. Not understanding, he asks her what happened. She then reveals that the important matter is about her great-grandmother. In a memory, she tells how her great-grandmother always told stories of her youth. In the stories, the two always appeared very happy and smiling at each other. But at some moments, her great-grandmother's expression would change and become sad. Explaining, she says her great-grandmother always became sad when talking about the swordsman. Her great-grandmother called him a fool for being reckless even without magic. She said he always relied on her help to heal himself. But in the end, he apologized and asked her to take care of everyone. Advising her granddaughter, she asks her to never forget to value her own life. She finishes saying that if he dies, the peace will be worthless. Crying, the great-grandmother says all the sacrifice will have been in vain. Hearing the story, he remains silent, processing the words he heard. Then she says he's the hope and asks him to promise something. Pleading, she asks that no matter what happens, he comes back alive. Smiling, she says that way he'll protect everyone's happiness. Changing scenes, a group discusses that only one of the 6 dragons remains. Knowing the dragon is strong, one of them says the fight will be decisive. Then the girl says she knows the fight is to protect everyone, but she asks him not to forget that everyone also includes himself. Surprised by what he heard, he can only say her name. Laughing, he asks if she ate something spoiled to say those things. Angry at the response, she lands a strong blow on him and calls him an idiot. Flying far from the blow, he shouts, asking her to listen. Then he reveals he doesn't want to die either, leaving her quite surprised. He tells her he knows this fight won't be easy, but he says if he has to die to protect everyone, it'll be worth it. Clenching her fist tightly, she disagrees and says she doesn't accept that. Screaming, she demands he promise he'll come back alive for all of them. Seeing her expression, he's surprised and stares at her intently. Giving a slight smile, he finally promises he'll come back alive. He guarantees that this time, he'll definitely succeed. To seal the promise, the two fist bump right there. From afar, the camera shows the scene of destruction where they are. Right in the middle of the city, a gigantic explosion suddenly happens. From a safe place, a man films the battle with his phone. With a smile on his face, he follows every detail of the confrontation. Arriving to help, a warrior prepares a magic attack circle. Another warrior is surprised, saying the opponent is stronger than he thought. Then, 2 powerful strikes are launched toward the great enemy. Asking if they really don't understand, he continues speaking to the phone. Meanwhile, a shadowy creature emerges, attacking with several strikes from below. From below, the two just watch the enormous explosion happening. Irritated, he shouts he can't stand seeing that again. Then his partner says they need to figure out how his invisible strike works. With a smile, he states that only a Jido can challenge him. Back at the field, one of them warns that now is the time. Pointing his finger, he says he's going to put an end to this now. As they face each other, he hopes that when they're reborn, things will be different. He continues saying he hopes they get a little closer. Finishing the sentence, he says he hopes they reach his level. After speaking, Arios unleashes his strike against everyone who was there. Even after the strike, the two remain standing on the battlefield. At that moment, he realizes the situation got really bad. To retaliate, he uses his swordsmanship, launching a powerful thunder strike. Seeing the result of the strike, the three opponents seem quite surprised. Suddenly, Ajito appears questioning what they said about his level. With a smile, Orios says that Ajito, the master swordsman, has finally arrived. Shocked, Nagi tries to say who that man is who just arrived and that he's the legendary master swordsman. Interrupting, he says there's just one thing he'd like to correct. Remembering the past, he says that 100 years ago he warned them about humans. Back then, he stated that a human could never defeat a dragon. Laughing a lot, he says he takes back everything he said before. Then he explains that he researched human culture and found it all very entertaining. Showing his cell phone, he mentions comics, anime, and social media. With his arms open wide, he says there are things there they'd never dream of. Confused, they wonder if he really is one of the 6 dragons. Talking about strength, he says he doesn't like losing one bit. Transforming, he says he can't allow humans to win. Completing the transformation, he shouts that he'll never allow that. Surprised, they realize the wings are the source of his strikes. Observing the scene, he says, this is Arios' hybrid form. The moment has finally come, as he endured everything to fight at full power. Saying he volunteered as a watchman, he crushes the cell phone to preserve his strength. Then he says, now is the time to get his revenge. Seeking to avenge his defeat, he advances using his powerful desperado strike. To defend himself, Ajito deflects all the strikes coming his way. His companion shouts for him to go since the strikes are visible now, but Ajito interrupts him, saying the fight isn't over yet. He explains that the invisibility power was traded for stronger strikes. Looking at Ajito, he says he knows he needs to use everything to win. Then he warns that he'll start by breaking his opponent's weapon. Seeing so many strikes, his companion shouts Ajito's name, very worried. Ajito realizes he's right. His old sword wouldn't withstand the blow. Remembering Mikoto and Dosetsu, he understands what he needs to do now. Holding the new sword, he simply thanks them for the gift received. Using his swordsmanship, he prepares to launch his 6-slash strike. Surprised, the opponent stares at the swordsman, not believing what's happening. He warns that the sword was made by 3 generations to be stronger. Leaping toward his rival, he manages to defend against the first of many strikes. Watching the exchange of blows, his companion finds that scene simply incredible. He comments that his strength and speed surpass those of any S-rank mage. Remembering the previous duel, he realizes the enemy didn't use his power. Then he turns and calls his partner Riku, ready to fight. Riku asks if they're just going to stand there while being protected. His partner reminds him of the oath they made when they were children. With a determined face, he prepares to finally enter the battle. Entering the fight, the two attack the enemy at the same time to help. Smiling, he says that wasn't bad, and that he understands why they're rivals. Even so, he advances for another strong blow against the swordsman. Preparing a large attack, he asks if his rival can really withstand it. With a gesture, he sends all his strikes in Ajito's direction. To defend himself, he prepares as a giant circle appears in the sky. With a smile, he announces he'll use his celestial judgment strike. Then, an enormous energy blast descends with full force in his direction. Using his Yatsurugi swordsmanship, he prepares his counterattack to defend himself. He launches his red cloud strike, creating multiple strikes that rise rapidly. Seeing the counterattack, Orios shows surprise at his power. Right after, the 2 powerful strikes end up colliding in a massive explosion. Even injured, he says his opponent really isn't an easy enemy. Seeing what happened, he says that's the true power of Orios. Smiling, Orios asks what he thinks of the city's current situation. From atop a building, he watches his enemy as the ground trembles. At that, several city buildings begin to crumble with the energy released. He realizes that can't be true, being the dragon god's magic. Orios says the resurrection is near and asks why he stopped. Irritated, he prepares to finally advance against his great opponent. At that, he advances, clashing his sword against his opponents in a strike. Taunting, he says, "This is the price for leading the team alone." Then he continues, saying the fault lies in not training a successor. Laughing loudly, he shouts, "That's why he'll be defeated." Suddenly, a dark creature appears in the middle of the battlefield. Right after, several dark creatures surround Orios, who's already wounded. Attacking back, he unleashes multiple strikes against all the creatures there, telling him to stop talking nonsense. One of them calls him a cell phone addict. Attacking Oreos, he launches a strike and then attacks with the sword. Meanwhile, his partner laughs, saying he got him with that insult. Seeing the scene, Ajito is surprised by his two partners' attitude. Shouting to Ajito, they tell him to go and that they'll take care of everything. Insisting, he tells Ajito to hurry, because the hero needs to do his job. Very angry, Oreos complains that the two are very annoying. From up above, he asks who they think they are to face him. Shouting together, the two begin to answer who they really are. Then they shout that they're the true pupils of the great master swordsman. Hearing the answer, Ajito is completely surprised by their revelation. 6 years in the past, in the Hall of Heroes, the guild master introduces himself. Giving a speech, he says they are all S-rank candidates, the elite of the elite. He continues saying the future rests on their shoulders, but he's interrupted. A young Riku shouts that he's the strongest and deserves to be called master. At that, Nagi shoves him, saying he got lucky and that he'll be next. Then the two start arguing right in the middle of everyone. Very irritated by the fight, the guild master orders them both out. Punished in the hallway, they keep blaming each other for what happened. Over time, they realize the master was a hero because he was strong. A few years later, the students hear that a new S-rank gate has appeared. Scared, they remember that many died, until Riku arrives and questions them. With a smile, he says the danger doesn't matter, because it's a chance. He reminds them that he and Nagi already closed an A-rank gate before. In the room, a student asks Nagi what he means by quitting. He answers that he doesn't care about rank anymore, and that he's going back. Questioning why he would go back, he remembers the training to become like the master. Irritated, he shoves him and yells that he doesn't know anything because he has talent. Remembering the battle, he yells that he's tired of all that and is going to die. He says if he wants fame so badly, he can go his own way alone. At that, the two are completely shocked by their teammate's attitude. Back in the present, he asks Riku if that still bothers him. With his hand on his face, he says it wasn't just about getting stronger. He remembers that when humanity was cornered, the Swordmaster appeared to save them. Then he asks what Nagi thinks everyone thought at that moment. He answers that everyone thought the Master would solve the crisis somehow. Agreeing, Riku says that's why he had so many companions at his side. He remembers the 4 great heroes, the blacksmith, and the countless soldiers who fought, but he questions why, unlike the master, no one ever follows their example. So he understands that to become the master, it's not just about strength. Nagi realizes that all this time, they only thought about getting strong like him. He says what they always admired since childhood was something greater. Then he adds, saying it was the life of the great swordmaster. He explains it was his way of protecting everyone around him. Suddenly, Riku stands up and shouts loudly in the middle of the room. Determined, he says he won't try to become the great master anymore. Shouting, he says instead he'll be the swordmaster's disciple. Turning to Nagi, he says they should follow his way of life. He says it's not too late, and they'll have more chances to fight now. He explains he'll follow his master, saving as many people as he can. Nagi calls it a good idea, but Riku denies being a fool. With a smile, Nagi thanks Riku for the new perspective on life. Punching his shoulder, he says he won't leave him alone in this. Then he says he'll also be a disciple of the great swordmaster. From that day forward, they changed, understanding what they truly needed to do. Carrying their hero's will, they came to have a single objective. Back in the present, they shout that they are the swordmaster's disciples. Surprised, Ajito stares at them while Oreo seems unable to believe what he hears. Then he says he never had disciples, not even in his past life. Confused by the response, Oreo says they seem worse than him. Riku asks Ajito to leave, telling him to leave Oreos to them. Still not knowing what to do, he starts to say he can't go. Nagi says it's different now, because he doesn't need to fight alone anymore. Together they shout that now Ajito has his disciples to help in the fight. He asks Ajito to trust them, as they've trained hard for this moment. Preparing to fight, the two ask the Swordmaster to trust them. Seeing their determination, Ajito finally seems to make an important decision. Interrupting the moment, Oreo says he's very sorry to have to interfere. He shouts that he doesn't care what they call themselves now. Ordering them out, he launches a powerful strike against the 3 opponents. At that, Ajito prepares to fight and says he has only one condition. Using his swordsmanship, he unleashes the prismatic constellation against the opponent's strike. With the collision, a massive explosion occurs, destroying part of a nearby building. Turning back, he shouts for his 2 disciples not to die in battle. He explains this is the first task he's giving them as master. Finishing his thought, he says they must survive at any cost. With a shout, the 2 respond at the same time that they understood the order. After giving the order, he leaps away, leaving the fight to them. Down below, one of them tells the other not to get too excited about it. In the sky, Oreos warns that they're only beginning the great battle. He says he waited for many years to be able to fight the swordsman, but he complains that the two showed up and ruined the fight he wanted. Seeing the scene, the two stare at Oreos, who starts laughing at the situation. Suddenly, he gets very angry at what they did down there. Shouting that it's unforgivable, he launches a huge strike against the two disciples. At that moment, the two are hit head-on by several energy blasts. While being hit, he shouts asking for just 1 minute of time for his partner. Surprised, his partner asks if he's really going to do that right now. Confirming the plan, he warns that this time he'll finish the fight for good. Then he reveals his special move, his powerful Thunder God form. Hit by the strikes, he says he already knows what his partner's technique is. Realizing the plan, he decides he'll also go all out against the enemy. Charging forward, he advances alone against the massive number of attacks coming his way. Oreos faces them, saying they don't even come close to the master's power. Determined to attack, he warns that he'll take down one of the two opponents first. Questioning Oreos' words, a dark energy begins to emerge around him. He shouts, "That's exactly why they're trying so hard." Activating his Dark Knight mode, he prepares to counter the strikes. His special ability is that of a mage who uses the power of darkness. Being one of his trump cards, Dark Knight mode is risky. He trades physical exhaustion and loss of control for an ideal fighting style. On the other side, Riku declares himself as the true disciple of the Master Swordsman. Nagi also says he won't disappoint his master, preparing his next strike. Using the 6-cut strike, he advances against the enemy's attack. With his face transformed, he shouts that he won't fail, no matter what. Being hit, Oreos realizes what's happening right now. He recognizes that was the Master Swordsman's 6-cut strike. In disbelief, he asks if he managed to imitate the technique alone without any help. Leaping toward Oreos, he prepares to use his final strike on him. Shouting that he's the Master's disciple, he launches a powerful strike against Oreos. Taking the hit full force, Oreos falls to the ground, surprised by the attack. Very tired, he says maintaining the Knight form is already quite difficult. He complains that imitating the Master's technique is too heavy for his body. Even knowing the risks, he says he was ready to use his techniques. He says nothing will stop him from getting closer and closer to the Master. Imitating the Yatsurugi swordsmanship, he prepares to attack with everything he's got. Shouting, he launches his Red Cloud with Black Flame's strike against Oreos. Seeing the scene, Oreos is completely surprised by what's happening. Completely breathless, he stands still in the middle of the destroyed battlefield. At that moment, his arm begins to crumble because of the power used. Observing the result of the strike, he faces the smoke rising across the field. Surprised, Oreo says he had no idea what was happening. Even all wounded, he says he needs to reassess his evaluation of his opponent. On his knees, he hears Oreo say that he's worthy of being a disciple, but he warns that the disciple is still far from reaching his master. Saying it's all over, he warns that he bought the time his partner needed. Not understanding, he hears his partner shout that he got him 1 minute. At that moment, a massive energy explodes, preparing the next phase of the fight. Shocked, Oreos faces the new power that just emerged before him. Confirming what happened, he says his partner is a true disciple. To counterattack, he uses his strengthening technique to change form. Completing the transformation, he finally activates his Thunder God form. Remembering the past, he realized the Master's technique was the Final Dawn. This is a difficult technique he learned to imitate with his power. His version of the strike is called Thunder God form, his supreme technique. In disbelief, he questions where all that power suddenly came from. Explaining about his form, he says it's not very efficient. Therefore, he warns he'll end everything in just 10 seconds. At that, Oreos remembers when he faced a dragon in the past. With great anger, he shouts that human beings are very irritating. Launching his strike, he attacks with Celestial Judgment once more. Dodging the strike, he prepares to counter the enemy's attack. Then he counterattacks, launching a powerful energy strike upward. In the collision, the two strikes end up causing a massive explosion at the site. His partner calls him from behind, leaving Oreos completely surprised. Now with Oreos surrounded, Riku prepares for the attack. In a double attack, they land several strikes on Oreos at the same time. While fighting, he says he didn't tell his master Ajito one thing. He remembers he was happy to learn he was the Master Swordsman, but he admits they're still too inexperienced to call themselves disciples. Being hit, he shouts he'll use this fight to prove his worth. Gathering all his energy, he prepares to finally introduce himself. Launching his strike, he shouts that he's Riku Odo, disciple of the Master Swordsman. With a determined face, he faces his opponent after launching the strike.